Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пихцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 920 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again as we learn that Moscow's under a massive drone attack, and also Ukraine is slamming Kursk once again. And it's good to see you all for another night of news.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as right now, while we are live, a massive drone attack is pummeling the area around Moscow. According to preliminary reports that we've been able to receive, approximately 100 Ukrainian drones have breached the airspace of the Russian Federation, with a large amount of those drones targeting the city of Moscow, and many couple of dozens more are also targeting different areas within the Russian Federation, although we have not gotten reports at this point of enemy anti-air engagement of those drones, or that those drones have impacted their targets within their specific cities or specific points of interest. But we do have large amounts of news coming out of the Moscow area right now, and we are most likely going to be continuing to get information, at least at the very beginning of the stream live, as we see that more of these drones continue to enter the Moscow air defense perimeter and continue to try and conduct attacks against their targets. At the exact same time, outside the Moscow area and in southern Belarus near the city of Gomel, we have been able to get a little bit more evidence that Belarusian forces continue to be on the move in this area and appear to still be building up, at least in force size and number, possibly suggesting that Lukashenko has something else up his sleeve rather than the statement that he made a few days ago. We have also been able to see that the fire near to the area of Shakti is continuing to burn incredibly fiercely, and it also seems that this will be another Proletarsk in the making, as this fire has now entered the 4th and 5th day, and it appears to not be dying down anytime soon, without a Russian fire brigade really even present to try and extinguish the flames. Simultaneously, we are also hearing that the Ukrainians have been slamming Russian forces heavily within the area of Kursk with a brand new Russian T-80 BVM of the variant of the 2022 model, meaning that these are practically brand new, having been captured inside the area around Konakovo. We were also able to get information today that the Ukrainians have continued to deny the Russian brigade south of Rekasim any access further north, as we have seen that an entire bridge-laying convoy and also a existing pontoon bridge have been destroyed today, once again doubly ensuring that there is no way out of the area around Logistical for the Russian brigade that is still there. While the Ukrainians have not been making any notable advances deeper into this area, probably facing at least a minor amount of significant resistance, it is expected that this brigade will either be completely destroyed in action or will end up being forced to surrender, considering there really is no viable option for them to cross the river and retreat to fight another day. Meanwhile, we have also been getting some fairly interesting news from inside of Ukraine. As drone attacks have continued, we've been able to see that the air defense has been shooting down as many drones as possible around the Kyiv area. We have also been able to see that down in the area around Chasiv Yar and Pokrovsk, battles have been waged very heavily over the past 24 hours in these areas, specifically Pokrovsk, as several main Russian columns have ended up being decimated or largely destroyed by Ukrainian forces. We are hearing, however, that Ukrainian forces in this direction are saying that the situation is very serious, and it actually looks like for one of the few times in the entirety of the war, the Russians may outnumber the Ukrainian forces, at least in this local area, enough that they are able to pull off what would be considered a textbook offensive operation. But we will be getting into that a little bit later tonight, and when I mean textbook as far as the numbers advantage that they have. But we'll be getting in that in a little bit of greater detail tonight. But nevertheless, we have a massive amount of news to cover. It is an insanely high amount, and these are just some of the main talking points. These aren't even the complete minutia of all of the news that we have to cover tonight. And not only that, we also got a little bit of additional news, and I'm just making sure here, from the area of Mariupol, where we were able to see that partisan attacks were conducted, possibly temporarily depriving the Russians of using the land rail corridor that exists in between Mariupol and Crimea. But moving on into our major bits of news outside of Kursk and further north to the city of Moscow, we have been able to see that massive attacks have been leveraged against the Russians today in this area, and it appears that the Russians have had a significant amount of enemy, air defense activity in this area, and not only that, a significant amount of targets also appear to have been hit by the drones heading into this region as well. From what we understand, the city of Moscow is one of the few areas inside of the entirety of the Russian Federation that has any kind of proper or at least adequate amounts of air defense compared to other surrounding areas. It is the only region where we've seen Pantsir S-1 ones relocated from the front and largely plopped down all around the city in a large air defense ring. We have seen, however, in the past that this air defense ring has not been entirely successful, as some drones have been able to penetrate the air defense perimeter and make their way into the town of Lyubertsy and also the town of Balashika, more to the eastern side of Moscow, possibly showing that there is a weakened area of the air defense perimeter on Moscow's eastern side. But nevertheless, today's attack was very openly not going through a weak spot. It was actually going through what we expect is the strongest air defense perimeter in the entirety of the city around the town of Podolsk, a suburb of the Moscow metropolitan area, and of course the city of Podolsk came under massive attack today from what we could tell. We were able to get some information from this attack at large before we actually get into our details. We were able to hear that over 100 drones are airborne, and flights had been prevented from landing in the Moscow area due to the attack, which we understand is still ongoing at this moment, possibly with more drones arriving along the way. We were able to get a couple of clips from the town of Podolsk, really the first line of contact that these Ukrainian drones came into while they were making their way deeper into Moscow, and we were able to hear explosions in the surrounding skies, and we were also able to see that maybe some of these drones ended up getting shot down. But here's our first clip, pretty short, but still showing us a little bit of the skies over Podolsk.
Oh, damn, man, that was fast as hell. Also, you got the drunkard yelling in the street before it even hit.
Some guy out there, man, he was drunk yelling, "A shooting star!" And then that thing flew over. It's like, dang, man, look at that. Jeez.
Oh, damn. Make a wish, Bliat. I hope my house stays standing this time.
Man, I hope my windows aren't busted out when I get home. It's like, dude, the alcoholic next door, which just saw everyone's windows on the entire street get broken into without him even having to hit it with a single crowbar. He's like, time to get some more vodka, man, Blitz. It's like, dude, that missile was flying with a little bit of piss behind. They call that thing a piss missile. But we also got to see a little bit more about what was happening around Podolsk here in this clip. Oh, we can see one of the drones got intercepted. They're very handy with the camera here.
I'm shocked that Russia has any air defense left at this point with all the, diversions they've had to do with their air defense systems.
Yeah, it really is shocking, honestly. These are the only clips that we've gotten from Podolsk so far, but it is showing, at least in a limited extent, that there was some air defense action present in this area, but we were able to understand that some of these drones made it on into the area, as we were able to see that later on, fires were breaking out in Moscow a little bit later on during the daylight hours. Just believe.
I guess they're bringing in the either the news helicopter or the firefighting helicopter, one or the other.
Nah, man, you got some guy on that helicopter right now going, "It needs graphite," or something like that. It's like, you need to put boron in it or something. Well, you see
No, you can't put the helicopter directly over the fire, they'll die. Send them in.
And they're actually sending you right over the fire. It's a firefighting Ka-35 from the Department of Emergencies, the Ministry of Emergency Situations or something like that.
And some road rage going on behind the camera. Jeez, man, Russia is so chaotic. Look at that nasty water, too. Is that what they're dumping on the fires? Is nasty algae water?
Yes, here have algal bloom. Like, oh my God.
You're going to get infection, yeah, and die from the burn.
Bro, you get this stuff dropped on you, you turn into Shrek. Like, no joke. You just turn straight into Shrek. No intermission, just you turn green. Like, that is pretty horrendous looking. But we also did get to see smoke filling the air from another direction. This one actually looks to be from a different area entirely, from what we could tell. This actually was coming from somewhere around the Moscow city area, which is right over there. Now, I know many people will be confused, rightfully so, with me saying that this is in the Moscow city area. Many of y'all are probably like, well, duh, it's in Moscow. Isn't that the Moscow city area? Well, not really, because there are actually two Moscows, and it's really confusing. So you have Moscow, the city, like you're seeing right here on the map. You know, it's the metropolitan area of Moscow with about 11 million people living in it. And then you have the city of Moscow, or Moscow City as it's called, which is right over here. It's this little area. And what it is, it's kind of like a financial district of a sort. The Russians built it specifically for propaganda reasons to make Russia look really advanced and high-end, although the rest of their city is an unimaginable slum. But still, this fire was near to the area of Moscow City, right there, the financial district. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the fire from another angle here. Oh, wait a minute, is that near a train station of a sort? Because there's like a domed roof over there, and we might be able to find that. Is this it? The Kievsky railway station, bleed? Opa. I think we found our answer, Matthew. I think it's this train. I think the fire was somewhere in between Moscow City and this train station. Just, let me see here. Is that university across the street somewhere over here? That's not it. Let's see here. We might be able to geolocate all of this. Russian Federation Government House. Is the White House out there? I don't know. I can't see it. It would be further off to the side if it was. So let me go over here. Because that building that we're looking at, because this is clearly the train station. Wait a minute. That's it. That's the building right here. The Radisson Collection in Moscow. This building. So we're seeing that.
Oh, that's actually some of a nice building too. Like actually, like that's a nice hotel. It looked like it was like what, a 5-star hotel or something.
Yeah, actually, this building, interestingly enough, was actually built during the Stalinist period. It was like a Stalinist form of architecture. They're pretty interesting. There's actually a building very similar to this in a lot of the major cities, like Kyiv, let's see, Minsk, Warsaw. A lot of Soviet and Warsaw Pact countries would end up building these buildings at some point, usually during the Stalinist era. But it is a pretty nice building. Probably one of the nicer ones.
Yeah, surprisingly nice, man. For Moscow, like I know that their little like center of Moscow is like the little showcase center. They try to make the buildings look extremely nice for propaganda, but even this is pretty nice for the center of Moscow. If this is that where it's at? First of all, the center of Moscow.
Yeah, this is in the center of Moscow, but to give a little bit of a caveat here, let me drop you down on a street just a couple of blocks away. This right here. I mean, this is considered high-end still in Russia, and this would be considered maybe middle class in America. You know, and it's like, it's like this isn't like the greatest thing. But I want to keep this in mind because some people are going to say, "What? This doesn't look that bad." You have to remember that this is central Moscow. Technically, as far as real estate is concerned and the kind of people who would live in this area, this would be considered the high class. This would be like living in lower Manhattan, for all of our American viewers, in terms of like the cost of living here. And also, to compare it for Europeans, this would be like living in central London, somewhere like Kensington and Chelsea. But this is the Russian equivalent in reality. It's not that great looking. It doesn't really compare all too much. This would be similar to maybe Brooklyn, or something along those lines. But this is still considered some of the highest class in Russia for the most part, which, doesn't really say much for them. They can get the appearance off here and there with a one-off hotel and a couple of city blocks building some skyscrapers, but they really can't get it across for the entirety of it. They fall short a lot of the places, but still, that seems to be where the fire is coming from, somewhere around the Kievsky railway station and also the Radinsk Hotel in the distance. But still, once again, a fairly significant fire. And we were able to get one more clip of it right here. Pretty significant fire once again. But that's the end of the clip. Well, that's actually the end of all of our clips. But once again, showing that Moscow appears to have sustained some sort of damage throughout the day. And from what we know, there are still ongoing drone attacks happening in this area at this moment. But still...
And also, Enforcer, speaking of the ongoing drone attacks, I just saw a post here that just came out of some footage. It says Ukrainian drones successfully hit the Russian Konakovo power station outside of Moscow as well. I'm not sure if we have shown that image yet, so take a look at that. It's reposted.
Oh my, we have not looked at this. We have not looked at this at all. So let me go get y'all the Konakovo so that way I can get y'all the location of this power plant. So we need to go to Konakovo right here. Wow, that is a small town. Where is the power plant? Is this the power plant? No, that's not the power plant. It's got to be around here somewhere, right? Yeah, it's got to be around here somewhere. So, the well, let's see. Konakovo power plant. There we go. Now let's find it. That is not at all near Konakovo. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's that stupid, Matthew, it's that stupid Russian bull hockey. Because you have a Konakovo down here, right here, and then you have another Konakovo up here, and this is apparently where the power plant is at, right up here. Let me see if I can
How
get us.
goofy. That confuses not only the citizens, but also the enemies trying to target. That's very inconvenient.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, how inconsiderate of them. But let me see if I can pull up some information about this power plant really quickly. And it's not going to be that easy because it's not recognizing that there's a power plant here. But anyways, this is where the power plant is. It seems to be a bit of a larger one, and also we can see that the majority of its high voltage lines snake its way down the A104 into Moscow, but it appears that this thing got slammed hard, and I mean really hard, with incoming Ukrainian drones. So here's the clip.
Вон въебал по Грессу, все, въебали в Гресс нахуй, нихуя себе, зай. Еще въебали он в Гресс. Это, говоришь, шахид летит нахуй, нихуя себе.
Я тебе говорю, я слышу.
Чё за хуета, блядь, происходит, ёб твою мать нахуй. Катюх по Грессу ебашут по-нашему, прикинь. Ебучий насос.
Looks like it was maybe just one drone hit from the looks of it.
Зай, это в натуре в
Looks
Грессу
like it.
ебашут нахуй.
But one drone hit, tisk can be very effective, Blid. It's like it can be really effective. Let's see here. So we can see the 3 funnels that were attached to the power plant. This is clearly some sort of a... let's see. It's not a nuclear reactor. I would take a guess.
It says here on the Wikipedia article, it says it's a thermal power plant located alongside the Ivanavko Reservoir, if that's how you say it. It's also the largest energy producer in central Russia, one of the largest. So a very important facility for providing power not only to Moscow, but also the surrounding suburbs as well.
Interesting. Do we have a megawatts number or a kilovolts number for that power plant?
It is... Let's see here. It says 2,520 megawatts.
Okay, so let's go look at the Kursk nuclear power plant for comparison. And so here we go. And so give me that number one more time.
It's 2,520 megawatts.
Wow, this thing actually produces more power than the Kursk nuclear power plant with 4 running nuclear reactors.
Very interesting. Let's see here. It said originally the power plant operated on heavy fuel oil, or mazout, before transferring to natural gas in 1982, leaving mazout as a reserve fuel. So it does use natural gas to create the power. So very interesting.
Interesting. So it is, in fact, a gas-powered power. That's actually a huge gas power plant, dude. I wonder how much gas they burn through every single day at this power plant to keep this thing running and to keep the lights on. It's got to be a lot, producing that kind of like power and energy.
Probably a ton. Let's see here. I was trying to see if I could find that information. I don't see that right off the bat, but let's see. Let's see. The gas. Where's the gas consumption? Yeah, it doesn't say that, sadly, but I'm sure it's a ton.
Man, I'm telling you, man, it's got to be a lot of giggity watts. Like, it's got to be a lot of them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're powering a lot of buildings with this thing. But still, it seems like it's been hit pretty significantly at the moment. We just got that literally minutes ago. And it seems like they're going to be having a bit of a trouble or a bit of an issue providing power in the area. So actually, let me copy that link and post that here on the map. So that way we can all keep track of this for reasons, of course. So let me go up here. And let me go and type in major power plant hit. There we go. Maybe was taken offline. Power plants generally are not built to survive explosions. So it may be damaged enough that they're having to take it off the grid and then try and repair it a little bit later. So with that very big news right there coming out as we continue to cover this attack, and it looks as though they're going to be having a really serious issue with providing Moscow with power. And it seems as though the Russians' grip on power in the country is not only figuratively, but literally starting to slip away. And a lot of people are wondering, is the attack a success or a failure at this point? And that's really a point of discussion right here, because considering that it's still ongoing at the moment, and we have seen that there have been some successful interceptions around the area of Podolsk, we've also seen that there's been some damage inside of Moscow a little bit earlier, and now we're starting to hear just minutes ago that one of the largest, well, it is the largest power plant in central Russia has just been hit pretty significantly. It begs the question, is this really a successful attack, or is it not? I'm wondering what y'all are thinking about this. And Matthew, what are folks saying, and what are you thinking about this attack so far from the information that we've gotten?
So it looks like 54% of the audience said it appears to be a successful attack, while 31% said we need more details, and 3% said it appears to have been somewhat thwarted by Russian air defenses. And honestly, I'd have to say, it looks like very few of the drones were actually shot down by Russian AD, which is kind of to be expected because the Russian AD is not that strength. It doesn't have much power behind it, to be perfectly honest. And actually, I'm surprised they have much of anything left around the Moscow area, around that top part where the power plant is. So I think to me, it looks like it's a successful attack. I'm on the 54%, and it looks like Ukraine has really overwhelmed them this time with over 100 plus drones. So I think it's a big success. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that this is a massive success. I would have to say that the Russians are sucking at having any success, but the Ukrainians are doing quite well, I'll have to say. It looks as though the attack has ended up dealing a pretty significant blow just in the fact that they hit that power plant, one of the largest in the region, and it also starts to appear that Ukraine is starting to attack Russia's energy infrastructure, a lot like Russia has been attacking Ukraine's energy infrastructure throughout the entirety of the war. So going off of that, I would have to say that this seems to be a pretty successful attack and appears to be hitting probably Ukraine's priority objectives during the course of this attack that we've been seeing occurring for about the past hour or two. But still, incredibly good news to hear. Lucky to really catch this live on air. It's literally happening while we're live, and hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit more information as we keep going. But, we'll have to just wait and see. But nevertheless, this attack is once again proving that Moscow air defense and Russian air defense appears to be somewhat weak, and it seems as though the Russians are not really able to protect any key or priority assets in this region, possibly because their air defense is so small in number at this point and has been so far spread out, there can never really be an effective concentration in it, even in a localized area. But moving on from that and out of that area, we have been able to see that down in southern Russia, in the Don region, near to Shakhty, the fire continues to rage at the Atlas base in the Rostov Oblast. We can actually see a picture here showing us the fire in its full form, and it looks as though it's consumed several of the tanks, and it's starting to move northwards along the compound, burning every single tank as it goes. Seems as though this fire will end up in a similar fate as the Proletarsk fire, and that the Russians really don't have a good way of trying to put this thing out or really quell it at all. We were able to see another clip from the road today, once again confirming that the fire still burns. We see them driving along. Romantic, slow music plays. Man,
I said, duh.
Man, this Russian guy is about to be watching this fire burn, and he's gonna be like, "And the road again. I can't wait to get on the road again." Like he's scared. Like he's probably like, "I'm getting the Volgograd, it's safer here."
Just put on any cheerful music at this point because they love to see fires burning. It's like put on any arson tracks if there are such thing. Like just put one of those on and they'll be ecstatic.
Man, it's gonna be like a rap beat. It's gonna be someone saying, "Yes, I burned down 9th Street warehouse store. I poured the gasoline and dropped the match," or something like that.
Russian drill consists of arson tracks, probably.
That's what probably so. Man, I'm telling you, it's like that Key and Peele skit where that guy made that rap song. Where he's like, "Yeah, I killed Darnell Simmons." It's like that. It's like I burned down 9th Street. But anyways, with that's the end of that clip. Really nice to see that the fire continues to burn on the 4th day after it's been stricken, and once again showing the Russians, at least within the Don region, are no longer able to even try and fight or put out these kinds of fires. Maybe because they completely lack the ability to do so at this point, or maybe there's really no way for them to do that at all, even if they really wanted to. But anyways, moving on out of the Shakhty area and on up towards Gomel, we were able to see that up here, while the Russians are having their own problems once again and really having a really bad time at even hiding it anymore, it appears that the Belarusians are still doing their thing, whatever that may be, as we have been able to see the movement of more Belarusian equipment near the border. Once again, they are all marked with the B symbol. The B symbol, though, is much smaller on these two S1 Gazivkas than we've ever really seen before. They're also being transported by rail, once again showing that this is probably a larger movement of a bigger unit. It also seems that it's maybe an artillery company element in size, or depending on how big this train is, it may be an entire artillery battalion, or maybe even an artillery regiment, although that would be a bit of a stretch. It's most likely just a company or maybe a battalion. A regiment would be a little bit too much. We can also see an MTLB further back, possibly some form of a resupply vehicle for the Gazivkas, or a command vehicle for for the artillery commander. We're not entirely sure of that either. But still, more Belarusian equipment continues to be on the move in this area. While we've heard assurances from Lukashenko that there will be no armed offensives into Ukraine and Belarus will only conduct defensive actions throughout the entirety of the war, the continued heavy presence of Belarusian armed forces within the southern Gomel region and also the continued movement of further forces into this area would still lead one to believe that Lukashenko's statements may not be watertight and that there may be a chance that this is an actual buildup for the beginning of an armed offensive into northern Ukraine. Especially considering that the situation inside of Russia does not appear to be getting any better. The Ukrainian offensive in Kursk is still doing quite well. The Russians are getting hammered not only in Moscow but in the Don region, with a large amount of their critical infrastructure being hit and damaged. And there's really no way for the Russians to even try and control or stop that. It would possibly be the case that the Belarusians will try and come to their rescue by conducting an invasion of northern Ukraine and distracting a large amount of Ukraine's combat forces by having them relocate into the northern Kyiv region to try and conduct a defense of the major city of Chernihiv and also the capital city of Kyiv, which may still be a possibility. We're not entirely sure how this will go. We have to kind of air it out there as a 50-50, because while Lukashenko says one thing, the actions of the Belarusian military are largely showing another. And so we have to kind of consider all options here and say that there is a possibility that this may all be for no reason at all, which would be kind of weird, or it may be that they're actually preparing for some sort of an invasion, which, while unlikely, there's also a chance that it could happen. But speaking of something that doesn't really seem to be happening too well, is the whole Russian railroad corridor thing through the southern part of Ukraine. Now, many people will know that I like trains. I think a lot of y'all who have been here in the question segment recently have really started to see I'm quite a big train enjoyer, but also I'm a big plane and automobile enjoyer. Whenever I look at vehicles, I think of planes, trains, and automobiles. I think there's some kind of a song or something about that out there somewhere. But beyond that, down here in this area of Russia, there is actually a rail corridor that's been built recently by the Russian Federation through the area of Mariupol, Berdyansk, and then it connects to Melitopol, and then reconnects the main line traveling down into the Zhankoi inside of the Crimean Peninsula. Nevertheless, while they have been able to construct this supply corridor, it's ended up running into a small amount of problems. One, it seems that Russian rail coordination, if you want to call it that, has never really been that well, at least according to the reports that I've been able to hear. It seems as though scheduling of running trains through this corridor or this main line has largely been very difficult, and it's never really been coordinated properly, meaning that there's been a large amount of delays, and the density and frequency of train travel on this line has ended up being a little bit lower. We've also seen that partisan activity, at least in a very, very limited form, has also started to pose some delays and issues as well, as the Atesh unit, a partisan group, has ended up attacking right outside of Mariupol one of the signal boxes that controls an entire segment of this rail's signaling capabilities, making sure to keep trains from running into each other. But you can see them finding the box and pouring gasoline into it. Not a healthy mix for a kind of a thing like this. And we can see them holding a matchup to. Whoa!
Oh, Leon, that Coca-Cola was spicy.
I'm telling you. Oh, they're lighting up another. Light it up, boys.
Oh man, lighting up.
Aw, man, 420 friendly. Aw, man. We see this piece of paper beginning to burn. It's very riveting stuff. Railroad pun. But we see them lighting a fire on the track. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It's actually for the signal box. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my God. The whole thing was covered in kerosene.
I gotta say, I'm not a fan of fires or anything like that, but it's actually very satisfying the way it lit up.
That was pretty cool, actually. That was pretty neat. But
I'm kind of understanding where the Russians come from now. I'm kind of understanding the fire thing.
Bled, fire so bread, fire so nice, bled. Bled. But beyond that, it does appear that the Ukrainian partisans, or at least the pro-Ukrainian partisans, are trying to knock out the Russian rail infrastructure around Mariupol. I'll see really quickly if we can actually see this on the map. It's a fairly new construction. Might actually come into the northern side of the city, if anywhere, because that would probably be the most logical area to enter from. I'm not really seeing it. We can actually see up here the Kamlooski district, which was a fairly large metallurgical plant before the war began. largely untouched as well. Not really that battle damaged. Some other areas of it is, but it's not as battle damaged as the Azovstal down here, which was pretty much completely destroyed during the battle because this was the major holdout. So a lot of these buildings are pretty much completely gone and will have to be destroyed and rebuilt after the war if this metallurgical plant even continues to operate at all. But still, beyond that, it is interesting to note that they are knocking out this main line that the Russians have built through the area of Mariupol, and we are assuming that once again there will be reduced rail traffic in this area, once again heavily impacting the Russian army's ability to wage war, at least within the areas of Kherson and Crimea, as the Russian Federation runs pretty much their entire logistics chain at least long distance by train. Over short distances, it is done by trucks, but usually those trucks are operating from a railhead that's very close to the active front line at that moment. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news right there, and we're actually going to start meandering our way on up towards Kyiv, because while Ukraine has been continuing, well, right now, to attack that massive drone attack in the area of Moscow, we were able to see that the Russians have continued their own attack on Ukraine over the past 24 hours, once again launching drones into the country. We were able to see that the Ukrainians did shoot down a Shahed 136 over Kyiv. We usually get a lot of clips like this, but I did want to show you all some of the air defense in action today. Oh, that sounded like a Gepard.
Damn.
And there it goes.
Multi-firing.
And that's the end of that clip, but still really neat to see the air defense at work at shooting down those incoming drones before they can actually cause any real damage. Moving on from that, it is now time for us to move on into the Kursk Oblast, which is really one of the biggest pieces of news outside of the massive drone attack that is still being conducted on Moscow at this moment. The Kursk Oblast has ended up becoming one of the most interesting battlefields in the entirety of the war. With the Ukrainian army physically invading the Russian Federation, this area seems to be in a very tough state. A lot of pro-Russian propagandists have actually said that there is really no way that the Ukrainians will ever be pushed out of this area. The only way that the Ukrainians will leave is if the war ends, because their defensive positions seem to be fairly good at this moment. They're still conducting offensive operations, and the Russians have not apportioned the large enough amount of troops that would be required to be able to start considering a counteroffensive, or at least stabilizing the front lines where the Ukrainians do not advance further. We can also see that the Ukrainians are largely in control of the area unimpeded at this point. Russian artillery, while hitting a large amount of the area, seems to be infrequent. As we were able to see that this group came in hitting the base, the loud drumming base, as they drove across the Suja border checkpoint today. See them driving through the checkpoint.
It's still kind of like surreal to see them driving through like Russian territory this unopposed, even though they control it. It's just like, it's really crazy to see.
It really is crazy.
And they're so happy here. Like, you can tell this guy's just ecstatic.
And they're enjoying life. Oh, who couldn't blame them? Ukrainians in Russia, unheard of.
They're living their best life.
Living my best life.
They just had to take over a little bit of Russia to have their best life.
Man, it's one of those vacations that they should have, man. The Ukrainians got a vacation to Russia, and they just get to hang out there a little bit. But moving on from that and up into the area around Konakovo, we were also able to see something really cool today. The Ukrainians ended up capturing a brand new T-80, a T-80 BVM of all tanks, and it also has one of the newer kinds of I don't really know what these are called. I call them fuzzy camos, but there's a specific name for them. I just can't remember it at the moment. But this tank was actually decked to the nines as far as a Russian main battle tank goes. And the Ukrainians ended up actually capturing the thing intact. Here are some other pictures of it as well. We can see that the Ukrainians put some masking tape on the front in the shape of a triangle, denoting that it is, in fact, a Ukrainian main battle tank. But it has a really nice forest-like camo over the front glacis, also over the gun barrel and some of the fenders as well. We can also see some RPG chains mounted below the Contact 5 ERA tiles that they have lining the turret. We can also see a pretty significant cope cage. And overall, things in great condition. It actually looks brand new. It looks like it's never really been used near the front lines at all. So, I gotta say, this is pretty great stuff to see. But before I continue on talking about the Kursk Oblast, Matthew has just told me that we have breaking news that's coming in. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we do have some big news coming in right now. We have some new images coming in of the Konakovo power station, the thermal power plant we just looked at a moment ago. We did see it was attacked by, it appeared to be one drone, maybe two drones, and it looks like that facility is completely on fire right now. And Enforcer, go take a look on the Twitter page right now. There's a big picture of it. That place is in blazes, and it says right here it's the eighth largest thermal power plant. So that place is in foul shape right now.
That is that's pretty significant right there. That thing's toasting up quite nicely. I actually say this thing looks like it's on fire. Now, I'm no expert, though. I want to make sure to put that out there. I'm only a bachelor's in history. But while I am not a fire expert, I'd have to say that that is a fire, for sure. That thing looks like it's burning quite large, as a matter of fact. I would say at least bigger than a campfire, no doubt. And Matthew, what are you getting from this as well? I know you're not a fire expert, but what's your take on this fire at the moment? Is it a fire?
I'm no fire expert. It looks like a fire to me. It looks like a blaze. It looks like it's well, I won't make that joke, but it's a blaze. They're lighting up, and the power plant is probably going to be suffering a pretty bad fate. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to put that out or not, because I really like it. The picture's obviously pretty blurry. You really can't tell what's on fire here. It looks like maybe the roof of the plant or something, but depending on how far this fire spreads and what it catches on fire, I'm not really sure maybe if it can blow up the natural gas inside the facility or not, but that could be even worse. Could burn the whole thing down. They could lose the whole plant.
Now, Matthew, I have heard from Russian authorities just a moment ago. I hate to dispel your story here, but I've been told that the power plant is actually perfectly fine, and any story saying otherwise is nothing more than a giant smoke show.
According to Russian lines of thinking, I guess that wouldn't be accurate, because it's just not great, not terrible. It's just 3 Rontgen.
Man, you missed it, damn it. It's a giant smoke show. There's smoke in the sky, man. It was a pun, man. It was a pun.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, the fire is burning quite nicely. We will go back up there to the power plant. Also, I'll be pinning this down on the map, so that way all of y'all who want to see it can see it. So let me go do that really quickly. And let me go copy the link, so that we can put this down on the map live, so that way all of y'all can see it. And let's see here. Let me go up here. Let me go up here. And here we go. Fire and smoke from power plant. And we'll put that down right there, and we'll color code it just like this. There we go. So now we have it. But still, it does look as though that power plant is going to be down and out. A fire like that is probably starting to burn the structure of the building, maybe some internal components, and the fire may also get hot enough to warp or compromise the integrity of other parts of the power plant used for power production, and for that reason it may actually get completely shut off, or at least a decent amount of its power generation capabilities may be offline for a good while until it can end up getting replaced. But still, pretty interesting to see. Good to know that this fire is continuing to toast and roast. And great to know, Matthew, that the Ukrainians are able to get a nice Russian roast at this time of the war. And speaking of which, we got our own Russian roast. I'm just kidding. We don't have a Russian roast. That was a plan at the time, but not any longer. But still, really cool to see this. Really good to know. Thank you for sharing that giant breaking news, Matthew. That was incredibly big news for sure.
Anytime.
And also, some people have been talking about a whole bunch of other things that have been going on in the Kursk Oblast, and it certainly is looking quite good. We were able to see that the Ukrainian Air Force is once again engaging and destroying the bridges and pontoon bridges across the area of the Reka Sim, still trapping that 3,000-man brigade of the Russian army south. We were able to see that near to the bridge at Kurish, one of the pontoon bridges that was set up was destroyed. We can see that it's sunk in location right next to the main bridge. A very good sign, once again showing that that crossing has been knocked out. We were also able to see either artillery or the Ukrainian Air Force engaged and destroyed a bridge-laying unit that was attempting to lay a pontoon bridge in another area around, I believe it's, oh my goodness, how in the world do I forget the name sometimes? I believe it's Zavano, and I want to make sure that I'm correct on that, so let me make sure to go down here really quick. Yes, it is Zavano, and here's the clip. Toasty, toasty, toasty. Toaster strudel. And man, are they cooking.
Looks like they called in a drone strike and blew it all up. Yeah, that's right. Listen, we're going to send in the drone in. blow it up.
These clowns must not be it, the way they don't float. But or something like that.
Man, I would bring out my sort of foul mouth joke. You know what I'm talking about, the same imitation, the foul mouth joke, the Middle East joke.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's a goner right there. They even destroyed the temporary bridge span that they tried to lay out right there. That does not look good, does it? It does not look good to me. But speaking of the Ukrainian Air Force conducting some pretty decent actions in this area, making sure to knock out these pontoon bridges and deny that brigade a way out of the southern area of the Reka-Sim, we have heard something very interesting today from the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian government has stated that the removal of the commander of the Air Force was not anything to do with the crash of the F-16 or anything along those lines. It was just a routine rotation of leadership. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts about this. And it seems like a lot of people aren't really buying that as the full story. A lot of people believe that there's a little bit more to that story than meets the eye, and it's not just any kind of a random rotation, because throughout the entirety of the war, the commander of the Air Force has never been rotated out and back in. It's just been the same one the entire war. So a little interesting to see that a rotation's happening nowadays. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this? Are they thinking that there's a little bit more to the story than meets the eye, or it just makes complete sense, or that they don't really buy it and it sounds like a made-up reason? What are folks thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so now that we saw the commander of the Ukrainian Air Force get suddenly sacked, literally directly after an F-16 crash, the first one that's ever happened inside of Ukraine, it looks like about 45% of the people said it seems like only half the story, while 24% said, I don't buy it, it sounds false, and 18% said that makes total sense now. And for me personally, I have to say, we weren't born yesterday, and I must say that Ukraine would have been much better off probably trying to say we simply don't want to give the reason publicly than trying to put this falsehood out there, because I don't see this being a routine rotation whatsoever, and the timing is pretty obvious. It happened literally a couple of days after the F-16 crash, and it's obviously connected in some way. So they're trying to basically, cover it up where they don't have to address it, because there's probably something bad, basically surrounding the circumstances of the dismissal. So I would say it's probably something that's covering it up, and I'm with the 24%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it probably is. I was trying to come up with a good-witted joke right there, and it fell flat in my head, and I was like, no, don't say it. But what I would say is that it does seem like there's more to the story than meets the eye. Generals and commanders generally are not dismissed for no reason. In the past, Zaluzhny was replaced by Sursky as commander of the armed forces, because Zelensky specifically said that they wanted new leadership and new ideas, which was kind of a political way of saying, I don't think Zelensky is doing that good of a job anymore, and I want someone in charge that's new that maybe will do something a little bit better, or will come up with a better initiative than Zelensky is. That was the honest truth at that point. And that ended up upsetting a lot of people, including us back in the day, but looking at it now, in some ways, Sursky has done better than Zelensky, and others, not so much, specifically in the Pokrovsk front, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. But at the same time, the removal of the Air Force commander without a replacement clearly lined up like there was in Zelensky's case seems to be a little bit odd, and is making me believe that there probably is something a little bit more to the story than meets the eye. The reason why we point this stuff out is because it seems to me that these kinds of stories aren't really bought by many. Because let me see here, let me add this up. About 68% of y'all, almost a complete majority of y'all, believes, or the congressional majority, if you want to call that, the 2/3 majority, believe that there was more to the story than meets the eye. Y'all either completely don't believe it, or y'all think that it's half true, but there's a lot more to it that they're not saying. And I feel like these kinds of stories that are put out like this, these official statements, aren't really the best for the Ukrainians in terms of their publicly perceived honesty. There clearly is more to the story than is being led on. I'll have to say that as well. But we don't know what it is, and we don't really know how much additional information there is, or even if the story is true. I would generally doubt it, though, at least in my opinion. because I would have to say there probably has to be another reason for this general's dismissal. I wish they would be honest. Like, for example, if for some reason it was some kind of corruption, I wish they'd come out and just say it was corruption, we're having him removed. We're not going to be prosecuting him, but we're going to have him removed because we're not going to have that in the armed forces. I feel like if that was corruption, for example, or if it was incompetence, like they tried to keep the low training of the F-16 pilots on the down low just to get them here. This is not up to our standards of what the armed forces should be. He's removed. Something like that would be a pretty decent statement to make, because I feel like it would give the public a reason to believe and trust the Ukrainian armed forces, or at least the Ukrainian government, when they make decisions like these. Because whenever anything's done like this, there's always a little bit of a realm of questionability about whether this is a genuine kind of a removal for a genuine reason or not, because we really don't get a lot of information and details. And not only that, it never really seems like it's the whole story. That would be my honest take on it. But still, I'm sure that there was a decent reason behind the scenes. We just don't really know the exact answer yet. But with that,
Also, real quick, Enforcer, one interesting thing. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but this is what I've been seeing floating around. They're saying that the predecessor, the guy who was just removed, the commander of the Ukrainian Air Force, they're saying that that guy was not actually a pilot, but now the acting commander of the Ukrainian Air Force, Lieutenant General Anatoly Krivonovsky, I believe that's how it's said, he's actually a pilot. So I don't know if that's like usual or not. Is it normal to have a commander of an Air Force, like the Ukrainian Air Force, that was not a pilot? Is that normal?
It's kind of normal-ish. I mean, commanders are supposed to just be leaders by nature. Like, yes, they come from different areas, but they don't always have to be a pilot. Just like an admiral in a navy doesn't always have to have commanded ships previously before. There was a lot of coastal assignments where people have been able to climb the ranks to admiral. So I would have to say it's not that out of the ordinary. It's kind of like saying, well, this guy in the army, he wasn't in the infantry, like, because the army is mostly about fighting on the ground with the infantry, something along those lines. If I'm correct, if I'm remembering this correctly, General Milley was the commander of a logistics unit at some point, and it was not an actual frontline combat unit. Nevertheless, he climbed the ranks to be up towards the top. Schwarzkopf actually was a commander, speaking of modern American generals. Schwarzkopf was actually a commander that was in the 101st Airborne and I believe the 82nd Airborne, which is pretty common really for kind of generals to get to that level, to be in some of the more elite units of the U.S. Armed Forces, at least the standardized elite units. I'm not talking about special forces. And then I also believe that, if I'm remembering this correctly, General David Petraeus was in the 82nd and 101st as well, and he was largely a combat commander and not kind of a rear lines commander. So it kind of does lend itself to really commanders can come from anywhere in the armed force. It's not from like a specific area, like you have to be a pilot to be the general of the Air Force, or you have to have been a captain of a ship in the Navy before you can be an admiral or something along those lines. They can come from anywhere.
I will say, though, whatever the case is, if it's normal to have one that's not a pilot or not, it's probably a preferable thing to have a pilot, just from a common sense perspective, because now this guy, the new acting commander, and obviously we don't know the circumstances of the predecessor getting ejected from the spot. It could be kind of rough. We don't really know. We may never figure it out. But it's kind of good having a pilot there, because now he'll know exactly what the guys are going to do if the other guy didn't. So I'd be curious to look into the background in my free time at some point to figure out what the other guy's background was, because I really didn't know much about him until I just heard this now that apparently he wasn't a pilot. So very interesting. But I think the new guy might be actually better since he's a pilot.
Maybe so. I would say possibly not. Because, there was a lot of great commanders in the past that weren't in the infantry that commanded armies and did incredibly well. Like, Napoleon had no actual experience as an infantryman. Napoleon was an artillerist, and he ended up proving himself wildly well during the battle, and let me make sure that I'm getting this correct. I believe it was of Toulon, yeah, right down here, the Battle of Toulon. He actually ended up charging, I believe it was some British forces on the heights overlooking the city of Toulon. Very different looking than it was back then. It's grown a lot since then. But he ended up taking over these heights right around here where this industrial yard is, funnily enough. And by the control of these heights, he actually forced the coalition forces out of the city, and that's really where Napoleon ended up getting his first taste of glory and the kind of legacy that he would have and the impact he would have on that century, that early part of the 19th century, in Europe, and he had no experience as an infantry commander, yet nevertheless he excelled as a leader of the French army through the times of the French Republic, and not only that, through the French Empire when he became Emperor of France. So, you know, it doesn't really have to always be like a pilot commands the Air Force or anything like that. I believe a leader is going to be a good leader regardless of whatever background they had in the military. Like a logistician, as a general, would be a pretty decent thing to have, to be entirely honest, because they're going to understand all of the back end side of things. And on top of that, at these kinds of levels of command, it doesn't really matter if he knows what a pilot would do and how they would fly a plane. It really matters if he can understand the full picture going on, the supply side of things, the upkeep and maintenance, how the aircraft will conduct their missions. You really have to understand everything, not in a really deep way, but more on a topical way to understand the abilities and limits on the strategic level instead of the tactical level.
Oh yeah, I guess if the job is like close by to whatever the actual like topic is, like for example, if somebody's in the Air Force, like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. They don't have to necessarily be a pilot, but it'd probably be preferable to have a pilot. But of course, it could be worse because, for example, Russia puts people in military positions like the Minister of Defense that are like bricklayers and the shoemakers and stuff like that, and they have no clue about anything about the military because it's so corrupt. They just throw people in there that are basically their buddies. So, you know, Ukraine doesn't seem to have that problem because Zelensky's been trying to root that type of corruption out, but Russia does have that problem. So I'm not objecting to the last guy or anything like that just because he wasn't a pilot, but it's probably better, in my opinion, to just have a pilot just because he probably has a little extra knowledge that the other guy probably did not have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also another thing, I saw someone, Matthew, say, excuse me, I saw someone say, comparing infantry commanders to the Air Force is stupid. I don't know why you're thinking that. I had to point that out. A person, funnily enough, Matthew, called Matt, said this, your comprehension. Oh, I'm sorry. Matt's actually backing this up. Sorry about that, Matt. Sorry, friendly fire right there. Let me go find the guy because you actually referenced. There we go. Your examples are bad. You wouldn't put an infantry commander in charge of the Air Force. No one said that at all. I don't even know where you're getting that from. I would have to agree with Matt in the chat. Comprehension there is lacking. I'm making examples of where leadership can rise from amongst your officer corps. You can use different branches in the armed forces and kind of end up coming to the same answers and conclusions because the honest reality is that leadership is leadership. It doesn't matter whether you're running a fleet or a air brigade or an entire air corps or an air army, or for that matter, an actual ground army. It would not matter. Leadership is leadership regardless of what branch you're in. It's pretty much the same across the board. It's just that the elements you're working with are different. But one thing I will also say, speaking about leaders that didn't really have good leadership backgrounds, Teddy Roosevelt, which is a president I'm a huge in fact, my favorite president is actually Teddy Roosevelt, just in case y'all didn't know. It falls within my no politics rule as well, because it's before 1960. So I get to talk about the guy. But this guy was a great guy. I think he was the best president America's ever had all around, in my personal opinion. Of course, you know, you got the greats like George Washington and stuff, but beyond them, Teddy Roosevelt, in my opinion, is one of my favorites. Guy was great. Guy was fantastic at a lot he did. But to put this into perspective, before Teddy Roosevelt created the Rough Riders and ended up being involved in the Spanish-American War, specifically at the Battle of San Juan Hill, which was pretty famous, he was actually, I believe, if I'm remembering correct, it was either before or after that. Now, let me check. He was the Secretary of the Navy. And let me go and double-check this. Yeah, he was actually, funnily enough, if y'all think I'm something, Teddy Roosevelt was actually big into ships. Like, he was as big into ships as I am into trains. And so he actually ended up writing a book while he was pretty much in college called The Naval War of 1812, and it was actually a bestseller. And it was like, dude, this guy was obsessed. Like, he was obsessed with this stuff. Because to be in college and to write a book that's still highly coveted to this day about, you know, the naval battles of the War of 1812. That's pretty impressive to start off like that. But beyond that, let me make sure. This is the guy that was giving a speech, and then someone shot him, and then. You're cutting up pretty bad right there. Can you say that again? I said Theodore Roosevelt is the guy that got shot during a speech, and he insisted on finishing the speech. He's the same guy that did that, right? Yeah, he was the guy who got shot and started bleeding. Like, he got shot pretty much I think right at the heart, but his glass cases and also I think his Bible, like both of those combined. Say what?
It was his folded up speech and also the glasses case.
Yeah, it was a folded up speech in the glasses case. It caught the bullet, but it still punctured his skin, and he started bleeding. But still bleeding, he got back up there. They brought the shooter up to him. He asked, "Why'd you do it?" And then the guy didn't answer. He said, "Oh well, take him away." And then he went all the way back up to the stage, opened up his suit jacket to show his bloody undershirt, and said, "Folks, I've been shot, but nothing will stop me from giving this speech." And then he went on to give like a 2-hour speech at this rally. An absolute legend. Like,
he was built different, man. That's crazy. Like, when I actually heard that yesterday on like a video about some U.S. presidents. I heard someone say that, and I was like, "You're joking." And they had like a whole like animation and reenactment of him. Like, that guy was built different to like keep giving a speech after getting shot. Like, that's crazy.
dude, this guy was really built different because you know what else he did? Like, that was really wild. He ended up going out into the Midwest and becoming a rancher for a little bit. He didn't do that good. Pretty much everything all the cattle he owned died. Like, but I'll cut that short because apparently you got some more breaking news. What do you got, Matthew?
All right, so we have some more footage coming out right now. This is about the Konakovo power plant, the thermal power plant. And Enforcer, go take a look on our Twitter page right here. It appears to be more of a like a day, maybe a dawn video of the attack. So let's take a peek.
I think this isn't the attack, man. I think this is the explosion, man. Oh my goodness. And
That
another
roar
drone
does
hit
not
it.
sound good.
Dude, they hit the gas access to this thing right there, 100%, because you can hear that sound. That is the sound of gas exiting a pipe at high pressure and then in burning once it reaches contact with the flame.
So that's what it was. I was speculating obviously earlier that maybe the roof was on fire or something, but they actually hit the gas line. That explains a lot better now.
Man, that's a pretty rough hit. And then also accompanied with the smoke that we saw later, not only is the gas pipe, or well, one of the gas feeds on fire, the building's on fire now as well. So this was actually a pretty serious blow to this building. Did someone say blow? Shut up, hot dog. But anyways, with that, moving on from that, and out of that, because that's actually a pretty good detail of news. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. But let me go put that on the map really quick, and I'll go put this up here. And
Also, folks, I'm still scouring for more footage, by the way, like as the stream goes on. Since we're lucky enough to be running the stream during the attack on Russia by Ukraine, I'm looking for all the news as it comes in. So you're literally seeing this minute by minute as the footage is coming out. So we're all watching it together as a big LSA family.
We are family. But beyond that, getting back to what we were talking about, thank you for sharing that news. Another thing that was really interesting about Teddy Roosevelt as a person is that he went and ended up being a rancher, Matthew, in the Midwest. And he failed at it. He ended up coming back to New York after all of his cattle died in a very harsh winter. Like, crazily enough, man, the year he went out there, it was the harshest winter that had ever been recorded yet. And it ended up killing all of his cattle. He pretty much froze to death out there. And they also ended up getting like some disease and dying. But before that, he was in a bar out there, you know, just drinking, and some guy came in, you know, like a rabble rouser is what they would call him, and he started, you know, just trying to piss off everyone and get on their nerves to try and get in a fight. And so then finally he saw Teddy Roosevelt over there, you know, sitting there with the little round glasses and everything, just kind of looking like a guy, you know, like, you know, doing his thing. So the guy sat there and said, "Hey, everyone, all these drinks are going to be on Teddy," which is a pretty big insult, you know, because he didn't say that he was going to have the drinks on him. This guy was doing it to try and piss him off. So Teddy Roosevelt put down the book he was reading, which was, I think it was on some naval stuff, because, you know, he's into that stuff. Let him do his thing. Let him cook. He got up. He walked over to the guy, balled up his fist, punched him one time really hard across the jaw, literally knocked him out in a one-punch KO, and then went right back down over to his table, sat down, and then opened up his book again and went back to reading. And that was it. Like, the guy was an absolute legend, dude.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That was back in the day where they really didn't, you know, charge people as quick as they charge people these days. If you did that and tried to pull it off these days, you'd be surely locked up for that.
Man, I'm telling you, it's like, it's you know, it's not really a thing that's appreciated these days, but you know, you gotta appreciate it for what it was back then. But anyways, one thing I will have to say is that he was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and I think later on he actually ended up becoming the Secretary of the Navy, like the fool. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. That was actually FDR. That was this fool-on Secretary of the Navy. He followed after Teddy Roosevelt's footsteps. But beyond that, moving on from that,
That's crazy. Like, could you imagine the mudslinging attacks on him? This guy, Theodore Roosevelt, the failed cattle rancher, trying to become the president of the United States. We can't have a failed cattle rancher. It's like, could you imagine the attacks on this guy?
Dude, you know, I can imagine this, Matthew. He's not Brad. He's nerd. He's weird. He wrote book about ships. Who likes ships? No one likes ships. Something like that. That would be like a hit piece against him these days. It would be something like that.
I think back in the day, they're a little bit more into substance and like character and stuff like that than they are today, because I don't think Roosevelt here would have gotten elected today. I think he'd have been canceled a while back.
It probably would have. Like, really, everyone from all of politics up till like the last 10 years will be canceled if they tried to run again. No lie. You know, it's like, it's sad, but and when I say cancel, I'm not saying that one way or another. I'm saying they'd be canceled by both sides. Like, Teddy Roosevelt would not be acceptable in the modern day to either political side, interestingly enough. Although, honestly, I would say if the guy ran today, I'd vote for him. Like, you know, if the guy was alive and ran today. And someone's going to say something stupid here in a second, like, oh, he was a racist, and he was not. Like, this was the first president that actually had folks that were not white on his staff that were actually getting paid. He was the first. So no, he was a pretty decent guy. I respect him. He had a respect for nature. He had a respect for folks. He had a respect for really everyone in America. He was really one of the first presidents, I'd say, that treated all Americans like Americans and was looking out for everyone, the big folks and the little ones. So you got to appreciate him for that. I would. But still, beyond that, the whole point of me bringing up Teddy Roosevelt here wasn't just to give him a huge shout out and pretty much be sponsored by Teddy Roosevelt. It was to say that he was a leader. He was a natural born leader. And for that reason, while he had absolutely no experience with the Navy, he was literally just an aficionado of the Navy. He ended up getting appointed to the position of Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and then under his leadership as president, he actually ended up expanding the size and power of the Navy a pretty good bit. So this guy was kind of just made for the role. He was a natural-born leader through and through, and that's why he ended up becoming that. You know, you don't have to always have someone who was a captain of a ship or a pilot in the Air Force to be able to lead. Sometimes you just need someone who can lead and understands what they're working with and talking about really well. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least about the whole leadership thing. And with that, we are going to be moving on into some questions here, because we actually got some interesting questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
That's crazy. I didn't even realize that. I was so invested in that little talk right there that we've actually gotten to 10:15 already.
Yeah,
I have no idea how that happened. But anyways, jumping into our first question here, our first super chat. This one goes to Live Laugh Toaster Bath, who puts in a very generous $80 donation. And huge shout to you, Live Laugh Toaster Bath, for that support. That's very generous.
Hey!
It's a good... And I'm glad I get to watch the stream live on my birthday. And happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
They said, have you guys had a laugh at Iran's apparently real and operational F-313? Huh, that could be interesting. They said, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. LSA.
Oh,
Father's
boy. Huh? You're cutting out like a million times, Matthew. I'm sorry if I keep on over talking you. I can't tell when you're starting talking and stopping talking.
Oh, that damn carp. But no, I was saying Father's Day. It's like, well, I thought that had passed a while back.
I'm telling you, man, I think it may have, but still, beyond that, I gotta say, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support, Live Laugh Toaster Bath, and happy birthday to you. I hope you're having a great birthday here tonight. You could have been anywhere celebrating your birthday, but nevertheless, you chose to celebrate it with us. That's so kind of you. And I gotta say, I hope you've been having a great night tonight. It means a lot to us that you would be here, and it's really cool to know that you would want to celebrate your birthday here on this channel, and I hope that you greatly enjoyed it tonight, and thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and supporting it. And also, while I was trying to say that, I was also trying to find the F-313, because they did apparently unveil this thing at some point, and I was able to find it. Here is, and let me get a good picture of it, the F-313.
Oh man, it's got sound effects.
Yeah, that was accidental. But look at that.
I was about to say
Wow.
it's a future video of the thing blowing up. They've got the sound effects to go with it in the showcase.
Man, that's the sound of the engine start up. The engine just explodes like on the tarmac.
Can we get a better picture of it, by the way? Because I can barely see it. Like, it's very small.
There's no better pictures. They're all small.
That aircraft is actually small. Like, that is tiny.
Yeah, it's itty bitty. Like I don't. It's rough. Let's read about this thing. Is a planned Iranian stealth unmanned aerial vehicle. Originally intended to be a manned single-seat fighter aircraft. Okay, so that explains the chair. I think that's why the chair is now no longer a thing, because they're like no human could physically fit in this thing. Let's see. It was made. A press presentation about the project was made in 2013.
Oh, wait a minute. This ain't new development. This is old. They're trying to pass this as new.
Dude, this thing is literally about 11 years old at this point, and now they finally came out and said, you know what? It's not going to work as a single seat fighter. We're now going to make it an unmanned aerial vehicle, pretty much a fancy drone. It's like, okay, so this thing is not getting off the ground anytime soon at all, because now they're going to make it a drone. It's like, all right, well, thank you for sharing that. Not really anything interesting. I would say this thing, for one, looks pretty rough. Like, look at the finish on that. That's literally just plywood they smack paint onto. No joke. There's, like, nothing else there. And two, this thing will never fly. Like, in a million years, this thing will never fly. I will put money on it.
You know those like con man like EV companies that try to make like the electric semi trucks and stuff, and they actually never had engines in them, and it was just like being pushed down a hill and stuff, and it was like a big fraud and all that stuff. You remember that?
I think so, yeah.
That's basically what Iran is doing here with like their fighter jets and stuff like that. They're under development for like a decade or longer. They never come to fruition, and they just keep hyping them up over and over and over. I wonder if they're getting investment money for these things, because like why do they keep pushing these like they're actually making them when it's been over a decade?
Man, it's just that stupid propaganda stuff, you know, to make it look like they got something going on for their own people. Because they sit there, you know, and the Iranian people just keep on hearing, we got these old Vietnam era F-4s and it's never going to get any better. They're probably going to start catching on that the whole thing is full of crap. That's probably the truth. But they just want to hide it the best they can. But I don't think they're hiding this too well, really. Like, this thing's tough. Like, this thing is pretty bad looking. I wouldn't put much stock or faith into this thing at all. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. Live, laugh, toast your bath. Thank you for saying Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I hope they're having a great one. And of course, long live the LSA. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also I see someone in the live chat said no investment, money made from illicit sales of oil. You're probably right. I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here, because otherwise it's just like nonsensical propaganda. Because if you can look at the photo and not realize it's plywood being painted black, then that would be pretty rough. But anyways, jumping here into our next super chat, we have one from LSA Rocks, the channel legend, who puts in a $100 donation, and huge shout out to LSA Rocks for that very generous support. That is the biggest of the night. He said, I am back and was sick, but now I'm looking forward to more news, and take one from the chat.
And I thank you for the massive support, LSA Rocks, and welcome back. I hate to hear that you were sick. I hope you're getting better. Getting sick is no bueno. I don't like being sick. I know no one likes being sick, and I'm happy to hear that you're getting better, and hopefully it continues to be up and up from here, and it's not any kind of long-lasting sickness, because that would be pretty rough. But beyond that, thank you so much for being back, LSA Rocks, and thank you for looking forward to more news. We got nothing but news. And I got to thank you so much for supporting and helping it to keep on running, so that we can keep on putting out this kind of news. But before we move on to taking that one from the chat and all that goodness, I want to make sure that we let y'all know that having news every single day for every single week of every single month and every single year is actually going to be coming to an end here in a very short while, temporarily. I want to make sure that it's temporarily, it's not permanent. So really quickly, let me tell y'all what is about to be happening. In the middle part of September, Matthew and me are going to be taking a vacation. I know, that's shocking. A vacation? What is a vacation? What is that called? Well, we really don't know either. In fact, the last time we went on one, it was about 4 years ago. So I have absolutely no idea how a vacation, or what in nicer terms is called a holiday, how it really works or what it really does. But one thing I can tell y'all is when it will be happening and when we will not be able to run live streams. So the following days that I'm about to be reading out to all of y'all will be days that we're not going to be running live streams. We will be running to the day of, meaning that live streams will be running on normal schedules up till the very first day that we're gone, and then they'll be running once we return. So September 14th, September 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th, and possibly the 19th, will all be days without streams. We will not be running any live streams during the 14th through the 18th, and we may possibly not be running a live stream on the 19th as well. I have to say that I thank everyone, like LSA Rocks, for the massive support and all the kind words that everyone throws in, and really appreciating this channel and really loving to see it always on air and always covering this news. We have been here pretty much continuously for 3 years now, covering this news for y'all every single day, and I wouldn't have ever been anywhere else in the world but here, getting to talk to all of y'all and tell y'all all of this news. I would have to say that as far as the kind of blessing and the kind of luck that we've had with running this channel, it is something that not a lot of people get to have, and we are entirely grateful and appreciative that all of y'all have chosen this channel to be y'all's primary voice of news and events from around the world pretty much every single day, and dedicating thousands of hours of y'all's time to watching these streams since the first day. But while we have enjoyed it, and while y'all have enjoyed it greatly, Matthew and me and our batteries are starting to run low. Behind the scenes every day now, we're just kind of counting down the days to this vacation, so that way we can kind of go and get a little bit of a breath of fresh air and then come back right to this and start hammering it out once again. So we will be gone those days, but after that, we probably will be back for a really long time, probably another year before we ever go anywhere again, to be entirely honest. But beyond that, I still have to let y'all know that while we are taking this vacation, that does not mean at all that we dislike running this channel or that we'd rather be elsewhere. This is the place I'd want to be every single day, but we are getting so tired that even too much of a good thing can end up starting to negate the goodness of it, if y'all see what I mean. Really, we just need to break in a little bit of a breather so that way we can come back and get to this thing. But still, thank you so much once again, LSA Rocks, for having been here for a while. Thank you so much for looking forward to more news. We are going to be having more news up until the 14th, and of course more news probably by the 19th. But still, thank you so much once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this thing possible for 3 whole years up to this point. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got for a live chat?
All right, so the live chat question here is going to go to Greaser Bub, the original. He said, how long do you think this war will go on, and how do you think it will end?
This war will go on. I have no clue for how long. People always ask me. It's a good question, but there's really no good answer for it. Wars go on for indefinite amounts of time until one or the other side breaks. And right now, I don't know when the other side is going to break, specifically the Russians, or the Ukrainians for that matter. We don't know when which side is going to be at the breaking point. Because of propaganda on both sides, it's really hard to gauge seriously how bad off one or the other is. We can only make really rough approximations and estimates of that on our end, and those can end up being off. I've made several crystal ball estimates throughout this war about when this thing would end, and most of them, well, not most of them, all of them have ended up being wrong. And to be honest with y'all, I think the beginning of this, the end of this year, the beginning of next year timetable that I've thrown out several times before, that might also be wrong as well, and it looks like it has a high likelihood it probably is wrong. So going off of that, I would have to say that in my opinion, I could not tell you when this is going to end and how much longer it will last. We just kind of have to be in it for the long run, because sadly, wars don't really end on a timetable. They just kind of end when one side implodes or the other, and we really have no idea when either side's going to be imploding at this point. So with that, I hope that does...
One thing for certain at this point is you can't tell when it's going to end, because, you know, nobody foresaw, like, Ukraine invading Russia into Kursk. That was unforeseen. And then now that that's happened, and now it's opened a whole new front inside of Russian territory. So honestly, to me, like, it's impossible, like the Enforcer's saying, to tell exactly when it's going to end. But I don't foresee it ending this year, to be perfectly honest. And I really don't see it ending next year either. This seems like, to me, it might be a long war that's going to drag out probably for several more years, because Russia is not getting to the point where they're thinking, we're giving up too much manpower, we're giving up too much equipment. We need to come to some type of compromise to save ourselves. They don't think like that because Putin doesn't care about the people. And Ukraine is going to fight to the death like they should to keep their land. Because if they give up land to Ukraine, or excuse me, if they give up land to Russia, that's going to only encourage Russia to go even further and attack something else. And that can't be allowed. So to me, I think it's going to be a multi-year war from this point forward.
I would have to say I probably would be leaning towards that as well, and even then, who knows? The war may technically never end. It may just end up going dormant, kind of like it did back in 2014. We never really know, and we'll just kind of have to see how it goes day by day. I hate to say that. It's not really a definitive answer, and I know a lot of people love to get definitive, clear answers, but on things like this, there is really no way to honestly give a clear, definitive answer without knowing that there's a high likelihood that that answer is wrong. And I don't want to give y'all a clear, definitive answer and some kind of comfort, but at the same time know that that's almost markedly untrue. And there's really no way of me even knowing when it will end. But with that, also, Matthew, you're not lagging right there. Sometimes, though, you'll start talking and it'll be like, so, and then it just cuts out like that for like 10 seconds, and I don't even hear what you say.
I don't even know. I don't even know why either, because I'm showing, like, finally for tonight, 3 bars of Wi-Fi, which is like what I'm supposed to have all the time. I usually don't have that. So the one time it's actually good, it's actually bad. So hell if I know. I don't know, man. I'm going to have to restart my computer again and try because I think it's having problems again.
I don't know. I would honestly say it's probably your microphone, because to me it almost sounds like your microphone just stops picking up audio. That would be my honest take, because it's not like a Discord thing where it's like something like that. It literally just cuts off. Like it'll just cut you off in the middle of a word.
I'm being picked up the whole time, as I can see when it's lit up green when I'm talking. It never goes dead at all. So it must be the Wi-Fi having an issue again.
Maybe, but I mean, you might want to look into all options, possibly. I don't know. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Big thanks to you once again, LSA Rocks, for that support and sponsoring the live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting into the rest of our news.
All right, so jumping into the last super chat of the segment. This one is going to go to Hokey Redneck, who's also a long-time channel legend. And thank you very much, Hokey, for that very generous support. He said, for the vacation fund, and send one to the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Hokey Redneck, and thank you for backing up that vacation fund. That vacation is going to be fun. It's going to be incredibly fun. I wish I could tell you all the details before we go. Honestly, I would love to, and in a perfect world, I would. But the reality is that there's a lot of sick people out there. Not none of y'all who are watching right now. Some people on other channels that would make sure to try and have us targeted or harassed by their people if we said where we were going and what we were going to be doing. But one thing I will tell y'all is that we will be showing y'all all of the pictures and stuff and videos as well when we come back. We'll probably upload them on Patreon, almost all of it. I don't think we're going to be posting any of it as like shorts or anything like that on the main channel, but we will be posting a little shorts and stuff on Patreon when we finally return, so that way y'all can see what we did, where we went, and kind of the cool stuff we got to see and do too. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we will make sure to take a live chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so this one's going to go to Skeleton Wizard. He said, if Putin suddenly dropped dead out of the blue, do you think that Russia would end the war?
It's really hard to say whether they would or wouldn't. I would say possibly not, because some people in the inner circle of the Russian government actually believe in this kind of a war, because they believe that the Russian Federation had a lot of its greatness stolen from it because of the evil West. Like, some people actually believe that in Russia, and so some people like that may take over and continue on the war, but others may not want to continue on the war because they're seeing it's destroying the country from within. And a war like that, even if you win it, you kind of lose it in the end because of all of the fracturing that your nation went through the course of the conflict. So I would say it's 50-50 chance, but once again, like deciding when the war will end, we don't really know what would happen if a new leader took charge. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Hokey Redneck, and sponsoring a live chat. And with that, we are back into the Kursk Oblast, and we're going to have to kind of speed it up a little bit because we have a lot of news to cover in very little time. But moving on from that, we did get to see a brand new pontoon bridge in this area. You can actually see it right there. And it's somewhere up here around Logistical. So it does seem the Russians have set up a new one. It probably will end up being destroyed fairly quickly. We also got to see that according to a Russian on TASS, They did lose the town of Malaya Luknia. We're not really sure if they lost it by being encircled and the forces there were destroyed, or whether they somehow conducted a breakout and retreated. But he stated that apparently there was a load of foreign fighters, foreign mercenaries, that took over the town. That's not entirely true, but there are foreign volunteers that are fighting in Kursk at the moment.
Мы держали оборону, держали. Вот. Потом они стали делать накаты на нас, и пришлось нам отходить. И мы дорогу держали. Вот. Получается, за тюрьмой, вот тут сразу дома вот так вдоль дороги идут. Вот мы дорогу держали эту. Были поляки, французы,
I don't know why, but this guy doesn't seem trustworthy.
афроамериканцы.
Yeah.
Ну, видели мы. Мы перехватывали и тоже им досталось хорошо. Да. У нас гранатометы, все это было. Да.
Машины подбивали какие?
Да, БТР, Брэдли. Во время боя страха как бы нету его. Вот. Уже страх приходит после боя самого.
That's a rough view right there, dude.
Zoom out.
Whoa. Look at that double chin. Like, dang, man.
They said, we're not close enough. Let's get in closer for this one.
Dude, they said, here, you've got the booger.
Вот. Уже страх приходит после боя самого. Когда уже вот это все прошло, начинаешь осмысливать то, что было вот у тебя. Вот тогда начинают подходить немножко. У меня, кстати, брат тоже этот старший, тоже здесь на СВО. Любим родину свою.
Anyways, getting away from Wempy here, give him another hamburger, folks. We're now moving on to Bolshoi Soldat Square, where we got to see a couple of recently captured flags. We got to see one of the Batman symbol, which is kind of like oh, whatever. Anyways, moving on from that, we got the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, the Wagner, and also the Ukrainian soldier holding up the 225th Battalion sign. Sadly, I can't think of what the Batman symbol is. It's kind of like the Russian FSB. It's some sort of Ministry of Interior thing, but I'm not exactly sure which. But moving on out of that, a little clip, and on out of the Kursk area, things seem to be going quite well up there. We'll be keeping touch. But we also got to see some pictures of the 117th Brigade in training, and boy, are they training. Look at them go. Clearing those trenches, firing that BMP recoilless gun. You can actually see the 73mm shell it fires right up there. Really nice picture. What a bit of timing. And we can also see the BMP from the ground. Really neat to see. Moving on from that, we also got to see a new Russian camo system in play. And look at this.
Обнаружили такую, что сказать это, предмет такой.
It's a bush.
Думали, веник.
Man, a Russian said, which is better, a gun in one hand or one bush in two? And they said, one bush in two, блядь.
Но оказывается...
He's about to show you how to use it.
We don't have AR-15, блядь, but we have Bushmaster.
But watch this, dude. He deploys this in an umbrella.
Oh, what the hell? Man, where'd they get that from? The prank store?
They're not going to be laughing when the drone hits it. Ah! I guess you could say when you ask the Russians, how's the fighting going? They'll say, bushy. You get it? But moving on from that, we also got the casualty report as well.
Oh my God. They got 10 Bobcats today. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. You see how close we are to 3,000 special equipment destroyed? We are super close. We are, let's see, 20. We are 23 away from 3,000. It's crazy to see, man. I can't wait.
And I gotta tell you, man, something right here. 1,360 Russian troops, 200 and 300 split, along with... Oh, my esophagus collapsed. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
14
man,
APCs.
save the esophagus.
Man, my esophagus can't handle the absolute neutron style, blade. 14 APCs, 62 supply trucks, 8 main battle tanks, 42 artillery pieces, 18 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 cruise missile. Great to see, good numbers, and hopefully Ukraine keeps it up, bleed. Moving on from that, and then into Vevchansk area, we got to see Russian forces getting hit, bleed. We get to see one of their Zugans getting hit, a little Gushkin, bleed. And we can see them targeting right here. Look at that little thing! Boom! Right on the nail. And it's an anti-aircraft gun. They didn't even use it for anti-aircraft tech and equipment and stuff.
I think that it's gonna cause a problem when they hit it.
Well, I was in Vovchansk, and I reported the GPS coordinates of the position to the Ukrainians or something like that.
The bear.
Dude, the Russian symbol is a bear, and so I had them blown up or something like that. But anyways, I do as the worm guides. But moving on from that, we also got to see that they were taking out some Russians down here in the area around Chesivyaroblie. And look at that unit symbol. Oh, that's loud. Anyways, we got to see the Russians running around right here. Also, thank you, Walter A. Lakota, for the massive support tonight, by the way. I saw it come in, but I was trying to focus on it, but still, thank you so much for that. And
oh, look, a little shack. It's about to get caddy shacked.
Man. Is this the hack shack?
That gopher's about to pop up out of here.
Man, caddy shack.
Shack of caddy.
I think they killed the caddy. I think not the caddy, the caddy shack.
Oh yes, walking on. Oh, Russian pig.
Russian pig blitz. Oh, I call
Nice.
them roasted pork. Oh, Matthew cooked some mean roasted pork, by the way, y'all. Big shout out to Matthew for cooking mean roasted pork. He makes tacos out of it. It's pretty impressive. But moving on from that and down towards Kurtamivka, we also get to see the 15th Brigade at work. Check this out. This is that carrot dog. Whoa. Hey, cool it with the music here. See them driving around. Look at them go.
Hokey Redneck said, "How do you kids know about Caddyshack?" I've heard of it here or there. You know what I mean? You know, we know a thing or two as we've seen a thing or two. You know what I mean?
He said, "How do you know about Caddyshack?" Oh man, I'm telling you. How in the world do I know about Caddyshack? Oh man, this guy was in it. Oh man, he was great. Oh man, he was incredible. Oh man, I'm telling you. He gets no respect around here, but he makes a really good movie. Oh man, I'm telling you. but still.
Rodney Dangerman was in that one?
Yeah, Rodney Dangerfield was in it.
Or Dangerfield?
Yeah, Danger Man.
I don't even know why I said that. Oh my god, my brain.
Oh man, I'm telling you, people don't give me any respect down here in the streets, but they give me respect when they see me coming down the street. Oh man, I'm telling you, they call me Rodney Danger Man.
But still, that is the end of the clip. Really nice to see the Kara dog at work right there. But moving on from that and down into the area of Orlivka, we also got to see a view of Touretsk today. All right, we got some heavy metal over it. Nice. And you know, every single moment in war can be accompanied by heavy metal or really crap music, like one or the other. And Wayno said, "Showing your age." Well, I'm glad I am. Because most people think I'm in my 40s. I'm glad you feel a little young here and there. Thank you. Oh man, dude, you know, it just hit me. Most people have not heard the Rodney voice because I haven't done it in like a year. Like, it just hit me because everyone's like, "Dang, you do kind of a good Rodney." I'm like, "Oh crap, I forgot. I haven't done that in like a whole year." Like, I completely forgot about it. But anyways, we see a Bradley laying down some heat and also evacuating some Ukrainians in the area as well. There's our Bradley, and it's hard at work clearing out that building.
Those Bradleys sure are potent. The Ukrainians really like those a lot. Like, I think if they get more of something, they'd want more Bradleys.
I think so as well. I think the Bradley is just such a versatile vehicle. It's such a good vehicle, really.
It's built Ford tough.
Bobby Carafa said, "It's been months." It's been a long, long time. Or something like that. And everyone wants Sam Elliott. Oh, man. It's been forever since I've done voices. But you know what's crazy, Matthew? That's the thing we're known for, man. Like that guy who went, "Oh, hell, it's the enforcer in their damned voices." It's like, at least I got, like, voices I imitate, not voices inside my head, you schizo. It's like...
Yeah. My voices are better than your voices.
Dude, at least at least my voices are just funny and silly, and people can kind of get a laugh or a cringe out of them. That guy's voices are inside of his head and telling him to do crimes against humanity. It's like there's a difference here.
Big difference right there.
But if y'all wanted Sam Elliott, y'all can get yourselves some Sam Elliott. Watch this American firepower obliterate these Russian forces around the area of Kursk like absolute legends. They're about to start evacuating their own guys here in a second, making sure to get them to the safety and cover that Bush's baked beans and Carhartt jeans provide. Make sure to get yours today at www.carhartjeans.com.
I hope that was.
Hey, man, what you doing advertising for them, man? That could be a sponsor one day. What you doing? What you
man,
doing?
I wasn't thinking about it, man. I just started hitting the Sam Elliott. It just came out, man. Like, I can't help it.
Carhartt's over there just licking their chops right now thinking, oh, yeah, we didn't even ask for it.
Dude, they're about to get a whole bunch of orders from Ukraine for Carhartt jeans. They're going to be like, wow, we're really making it in the Ukrainian market. Wow. I like oh, man. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Nice to see the Bradley evacuating the Ukrainian troops. And moving on from that and out of the area, we were also able to see an M113 conducting a little bit of a rescue mission on the Pokrovsk front today as well. Now, the situation in this front is a little bit different and a lot more tough. The Ukrainians are openly stating that the situation in this area is fairly arduous for them. They are outnumbered nearly 5-1, according to what some Ukrainian soldiers are saying. They are not prioritized for ammunition or reinforcements at this point, and this largely means that all favors in this area are not conducive to a defense outside of Pokrovsk, and we're going to see the Ukrainians probably get pushed back all the way into Pokrovsk itself. Not an exactly ideal scenario, but it's the one that we're seeing at the moment. Let's see here.
Also, real quick, Enforcer, a piece of grim news here, but it has to do not necessarily with Ukraine, but it has to do with the Middle East. Some very unfortunate news that just came out about the Israel-Gaza situation. Apparently, they just found 6 of the hostages dead in Hamas tunnels near Rafah, including the U.S. citizen Hirsch Goldberg Polin, says the U.S. president. So apparently, Hamas has started killing the hostages, and they've dumped them now. So very unfortunate news.
Oh, that's incredibly terrible to hear, and once again showing that they were probably dead the entire time, to be entirely honest, because, you know, they've already found several dead before throughout the time that they've been in the Gaza Strip, so it seems as though they're starting to find more of them now, and also we're not getting information at the moment about the decomposition of the remains, which would give us a fairly good idea whether these people were executed recently or a time since in the past, meaning that they would have never been exchanged in the first place because they were no longer alive. But that's incredibly unfortunate to hear, and will probably be escalating the situation in that region even further.
That's also very interesting to hear as well, because the U.S. has been hanging their hats on a hostage deal the entire time. And like you said, we don't know when the hostages were actually taken out. It could have been a while ago, or it could have been very, very recent as today. So we don't know. That's not good to hear, though, because that's the only thing at the moment that the U.S. was holding on to, because it's a situation entirely now that the hostages have been taken out.
I would agree so. And with that, we're now moving on into our next bit of news, where we also got to see the Russians getting hit really hard in the Pokrovsk sector again, this time using some ATVs. They still ended up getting slammed pretty badly, ATV or not. Actually, that's UAZ 469. Oh, dead in the engine bay. That's a knockout right there. And we can see a ATV, a legit ATV, I think, passing. Dude, look, it's a pickup buhanka.
Look at that.
Look at that. Dude, that's special. Are they going to get the pickup buhanka or the ATV? They went for the ATV. Oh! We see a buhanka on the run here. Like, Zoink Scoop, I think we're about to die. Reggie! all the fuel tanks on fire. It's Hell Rider. Look at him go. Oh! Oh, and one of them got out somehow further down the street. Oh, wow. Oh. That's a rough one right there. And I see a lot of people, now that I'm doing the voices, a lot of people are asking for the rounds of the voices. So I will do one more, and then we're going to leave it at that and get back to kind of serious, more serious-ish news coverage. Here we can see the Russian soldiers trying to evade the Ukrainian Hawks as the Ukrainian Hawks dive in for a delicious meal. We can see here that the Russians are not escaping the Ukrainian hell divers, and for this reason, these feather-crested peregrines will be enjoying a tasty meal, and the Russians will no longer be hungry, for they have perished. Oh my goodness, this is horrendous! Dude, they are just wiping these people out. I mean, my lord.
Also, just a real quick note, the poll that's currently running is obviously about the situation in the Middle East. I wasn't able to fit that into the question, so that's what's referencing.
All right, and we'll see what people give us an answer to that, and hopefully it's an interesting one. But we can see the fires continuing to burn. Sorry, Matthew, if I'm sounding really quick. These videos are really long, and we're starting to run massively overtime because there's still a lot left. So I'm just trying to speed us on through the news and get the news out. I saw someone ask for a specific one. I'm sorry, I can do voices about everyone, but apparently if I do voices about them, they do some passive-aggressive complaining thing there. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news, where we got to see the 59th Brigade also repelling an assault in this area today. And we can see here the Russian column advancing. Do not get us involved in another war. Yeah, even if it's justified, I guess. You know, I guess we should not get involved in another war. We should be a coward, right? That would be a good thing, right, USMC son? That would be the correct thing to do. The morally, the morally obvious thing to do. You know, like if your children and your wife are getting beat to death by someone out in the street, better not to start a fight, right? Just let them get beat to death, right? You know, fighting that guy. I mean, hell, we don't want to get involved in another fist fight. Guys, come on. I mean, you know, like, sure, I mean, it's right, but come on. We want to have peace at all costs, even if we lose everything in the process. But we can see the 59th absolutely slamming this Russian column, and really nice to see. But moving on from that, we have heard that the situation is strenuous. Like I was saying earlier, this is really recapping a lot of what I said, according to a Ukrainian soldier. The situation does look rough in this area, and we were also able to see the 110th Brigade hitting some Russians around the Karlivka direction as well. And we can see here that they're targeting an MTLB. I'm seeing some bots coming in here. Interesting enough. Saw another one. They said, sorry, my borders, and they spelled it like hoarders, are not Ukrainians or Israel's. That's 100% a bot because they can't even spell English. So like they can't even write English correctly. And we see here a BMP-1 also getting roasted as well right there. Oh! And wonderful to see. Moving on from that and out of the area, further down towards Mariupol, we also get to see a Ukrainian soldier inspecting the shells. A very World War II-ish picture right here, but still pretty cool to see. Moving on from that, we also get to see down in Vulhedar a very interesting United 24 documentary about the town of Vulhedar and the ongoing fighting around this area. It's a little lengthy, but I think it's, and let me double check this here. I think this is one of our last things that we have. Yes, it is. So we are going to be watching that clip right here.
We are working towards Vulhedar. These people who simply claw onto this land, you can say it's like a second home for us. I feel sorry about the city. That's it.
Dear viewers, we have finally arrived in Vulhedar, and this is not the state I wanted to see this city in. It's a complete ruin, but it's also a symbol of resilience of the Ukrainian troops, as the soldiers of 72nd Brigade and other units have been holding the defense of the city for over 2 years. By now this ghost town has become their second home. Today we are lucky to talk to these heroes and find out how they are able to hold the defense of the city for so long.
To be honest, the city has changed a lot in terms of destruction over these last 2 years. When we first came here, there was a relatively good life and people. Many more civilians and houses were still intact. And then, quite quickly, it turned into such ruins.
Vulhedar was a small town founded on coal deposits, and before the full-scale war 15,000 people lived here. Most of them worked on 2 large coal mines. You can see what the city looks like now. There's 0 undamaged buildings, there's 0 intact windows, and these are the typical signs of Ruski Mir, the so-called Russian world. Just take a look what the Russian army is doing to Ukrainian cities. This applied not only to Vulhedar, but to all the cities around Ukraine. It is painful to see. Today Vulhedar looks a lot like Pripyat. I imagine that people, whole families lived in each apartment, whose fates were taken and chewed up by the war. A certain part of them ended here. In the yards, instead of living people, we see graves. The streets we move along are 2-3 kilometers from the closest enemy positions. We are in a strike zone of literally any weapon, be it a drone, mortar or air bomb. But we're lucky not to get shelled yet.
After their attempt last year to storm Vulhedar, they realized that it was difficult to do anything with such a fortified area, as the city is on high ground. So they changed their tactics. They just started launching aerial bombs, destroying all the buildings. They partly succeeded with this task.
The most intense phase of the battle for Vulhedar took place in the winter of 2022-23. During 1 week of these assaults, Ukrainian soldiers burned a record 130 heavy vehicles, 36 of which were tanks.
З такого, напевно, найбільш пам'ятного, якщо можна так сказати, то це був...
The most memorable events, if I may say so, were the events in the winter of 22, when the enemy attempted to capture the town, to enter the town itself, and the enemy came quite close, literally 400 meters away. We even had to move our mortar launchers to other positions, simply because the minimum firing range did not allow us to target the enemy. Fifth charge, fourth, third, and then the first charge. And the sight is very even vertically, you can say. Mortar operators will understand what this means. Well, that is, by lowering the charge, you can aim at the target closer to you, and it's much more difficult. More things start flying in your direction in response.
But it's not just mortar launchers who are working to defend the city. It's early morning in the south of the Donetsk region front, and the M777 crew is preparing to target Russian assault groups moving towards Vulhedar and around the city. Every day, these men have work to do, mostly targeting infantry and armored groups who now choose to attack the city flanks. But for every shot, they get a retaliation. The counter-battery fire is starting against us, so we are taking cover and waiting for the next orders.
Хоть би в душ не попали. То все херня. Дальше. Перелетел. Це не чути був вихлоп.
You shoot, you get shot. And for these men, it has been like that for 6 months. During all this time, the crew members only left this position to dig a new one.
Лячно, страшно завжди. Але ж...
It's scary. Always scary. But you hope they will miss. There's no other choice.
Although the defenders of Vulhedar have already been through a lot, now with fall of Mariupol, the new possible attack direction is opening up, and this is the area right here behind me. It may be the third direction of the attack on the city, making it half surrounded.
I think they tried and failed. Maybe they have other plans now, you know? To go around from the other side and cut off the city just like that. Maybe so.
Vulhedar may seem like just a few words on blocks, a sight also common in this war. Yet, it stands as a crucial stronghold in the south of the Donetsk region. As global attention shifts toward the fronts, like the Kursk operation, it is vital to remember that the Donetsk region remains Russia's primary target. The endurance of Vulhedar's defenders will likely continue to be tested, as they face new threats, head-on.
Скільки часу ми тут пробули, скільки сил,
We've spent so much time here, given so much of our strength and health, and lost so many comrades. So just walking away from this city, from our positions, doesn't sit right. Neither our conscience nor our will allows it.
Яким чином вам вдається стримувати це місто настільки довго?
Є якийсь плюс і в тому, що це...
Well, there's a certain advantage geographically that this city is located at a height. There are some natural obstacles that are difficult for the enemy to overcome. But I think the biggest reason is the people who defend it. I can confidently say that I'm proud to serve in this unit with such people, because there are a lot of heroes. So first of all, I think that these people who simply claw onto this land, hold onto it in every possible way, making enormous, titanic efforts, fighting for every meter of their land.
And with that, that is the
That's a
end.
good unit right there. Brave guys.
Yeah, really brave. And then with that, that's the end of that clip, but still, once again, showing some of the battles ongoing in the Vulhedar area. But without further ado, it's time for us to get to Kyiv and cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 920 of the war. And so without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Speech! Give me a speech, please.
Сьогодні у Харкові триває розбір завалів на місці влучань російських бомб. Загалом вчорашні удари забрали життя 6 людей у Харкові. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким. 97 людей були травмовані, усім надано необхідну допомогу. І це тільки у Харкові. І це тільки один день російських ударів. Сьогодні від ранку російські терористи били керованими авіабомбами і по Сумщині, і знов по Харківщині. І цей терор надійно зупиняється тільки в один спосіб – ударами по російських військових аеродромах, по їхніх базах, по логістиці російського терору. І найголовніше, що це можливо. Ми щодня говоримо про це з партнерами, ми переконуємо, ми даємо аргументи, і цими днями у Вашингтоні працює наша українська делегація, перша віце-прем'єр-міністр, міністр оборони, представники Генштабу, керівник Офісу, були зустрічі на різних рівнях, і серед перших для нас питань саме далекобійність для наших сил оборони, можливість не допустити усього цього терору, через який змушений проходити наш Харків та інші наші міста. Багато, дуже багато громад України. Очистити українське небо від російських керованих авіабомб – це сильний крок, щоб примусити Росію шукати закінчення війни та справедливого миру. Українські представники дали всю необхідну інформацію, всі необхідні деталі нашим партнерам. Я звертаюся до Сполучених Штатів, Великої Британії, Франції та Німеччини. Нам потрібні можливості реально і повністю захищати Україну та українців. Нам потрібні і дозволи на далекобійність, і ваші далекобійні снаряди та ракети. Не можна відкладати життєво важливі рішення, саме те, що може найбільш правильно вплинути на події. Також ми говоримо з партнерами про ППО, про системи, які так потрібні, особливо зараз, перед навчальним роком, щоб дати більше безпеки нашим українським дітям в школах, нашим містам, нашій енергетиці. Ми ж маємо з вами домовленості щодо ППО і щодо ракет, до систем ППО. Важливо якнайшвидше все це реалізувати. Ми працюємо цими днями ще активніше заради саме таких новин про додаткові системи ППО. Я хочу подякувати усім в світі, хто нам допомагає. Я дякую всім друзям України, які не мовчать про цей терор, які реагують на всі ці удари, які поширюють правду про цю війну і закликають світ бути більш рішучим, а отже більш результативним у захисті від Росії. Сьогодні говорив з головкомом, Покровський напрямок, найбільше штурмів, не просто також на Краматорському, Торецькому, Куп'янському напрямках, майже 200 боїв щодобово по всьому фронту. І найважливіше зараз завдати окупанту максимальних втрат та відповідати на всі російські удари. Ми обговорили також з головкомом деталі наших наступальних операцій, активні дії в Курській області. Ми продовжуємо поповнювати обмінний фонд для України та витискаємо війну на російську територію. Стійкість кожного нашого підрозділу, влучність наших воїнів та сильні рішення партнерів мають однаково вирішальне значення. Я дякую всім нашим бойовим бригадам. Слава Україні!
And
Heroam Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 920 of the war. And that moves us on into the second segment. A little bit overtime, about 20 minutes overtime, but still, nevertheless, an incredibly fun segment because we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And it's always fun to do that. It's always fun to get to talk to y'all and hear y'all's questions, cool things y'all have to say, maybe even just places y'all want us to see. And of course, it's time for us to start talking about literally anything and everything. Y'all know it's going to be trains. It's like 100% trains. But anyways, with that, Matthew, I understand that we have asked the folks in the chat another interesting question. We've had a lot of people really rallying around one major idea behind it. And so what do we got?
All right, so entering our final question segment of the night, we have one poll left to address. And the question says, now that 6 hostages have been found dead in Rafah, should the U.S. cease negotiations and start attacking? 58% said yes, cease the talks and start attacks, while about 15% were unsure, 17% said keep the talks going, there's still hope, and 10% said cease the talks but hold off the attacks. And I would have to say that it's about time the difficult decision, honestly, really not a difficult decision in my opinion, but to some people it might be difficult. I would say it's about time to stop negotiating with these terrorists over here, and it's time to start laying down the law. We should have done that a while back, because obviously it's been proven right now that the hostages have been killed, and it didn't do any good to negotiate with them. So we should have stuck to our previous policy of not negotiating with terrorists like we should have done from the beginning, and we should not have given them the leeway to basically buy time to basically build up their forces and get ready to attack Israel even worse. So I'm with the 59%. It's time to start taking action. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I'm with the 59% as well. I've been with 59%. Matthew and me both have been for really ever since October of last year. So I would have to say 100%. In fact, 500% in my opinion. I would say I'm not at all a big fan of trying to negotiate with this group. These groups that Iran supports are largely barbaric. Like, that's really the best way to put it. I know some people will sit there and go, but the Israelis! And it's like, yeah, but the Israelis did everything they did in response to what those people did, killing about 1,500 people in a single day. So I would say, you know, it's about time that it's about time that the gloves are off and things get real in that area, for everyone's sake, for that matter. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Not really big reason into going into that a whole lot. It's really simple as is. Hostages have been killed. Now it's time for action. And so, with that, let's get on into the questions. What do we got, Matthew?
All right, and also real quick, Enforcer, real quick, one last thing. We have one more video. It's like 5 seconds long, showing that Konakovo power plant. It's a very clear view of the fire coming out of the side of the building. So let's show that real quick to finalize that story.
And we're finalizing that story right here, right now. Fire. Whoa.
It's coming out the side of the building. I guess that's the natural gas access line or something like that.
Whoa. Look at that boiler.
That boiler.
But anyways, nice to see you. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. Thank you for sharing that. And without further ado, we got so many questions in such a little time. Take it away, Matthew.
All right, so jumping into our Super Chat segment, the final one of the night. We have some very good questions to go over. And jumping into our first one here, we have one from Walter A. Lakota Jr., the channel legend. We actually have two from him. He wanted me to read them both at the same time. So the first one here from Walter is a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Walter, for that support. He said, Aloha, the Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. And as the Enforcer is rail buff, you should check out UP, Union Pacific, 4012 4884 Big Boy, which is the biggest and most heaviest steam locomotive built by the Lima Iron Works.
The Lima locomotive? Did it say Iron Works?
He said Iron Works.
Iron Works. I thought it was the Locomotive Works. I could be wrong with that, though. Let me go pull that up, though. Lima... It is Lima Locomotive Works. I found it right here. Look at this. Lima Locomotive Works. Pretty cool company. I'm a believer in Baldwin. Like, Baldwin Locomotive Works. I think Baldwin was, like, the most prolific one in the country, if I'm correct. But also, I don't really like Alco, I'm going to be honest, speaking of modern locomotives. But EMD probably made some of the most famous locomotives in this nation's history, in modern history at least, in the diesel era. But beyond that, I will check out the Big Boy. The Big Boy, at least one of them, 4014, I believe it is, has ended up surviving. Let's see, is it 40? Yeah, here, 4014. Big Boy, well, that Big Boy survived. And we're not talking about Big Boy Shoney's, or Shoney's Big Boy. We're not talking about that Big Boy, because there's another one like it. He holds a giant hamburger. You can see him right here. That's Big Boy. But I'm not talking about that Big Boy. I'm talking... Also, this guy looks creepy, man. I wouldn't trust this guy.
That looks like a little boy.
Man, he looking scary. he looking creepy. But beyond that, this is the Big Boy. And the Big Boy is a big boy. It's a duplex. It actually has 2 sets of drivers. So it's a 4884, one of the biggest ones made in America. Technically, though, I think the Alleghenies were a little bit bigger than the Big Boys. It's just that none of those were preserved. So this is the largest steam locomotive that still exists in the world. Really cool. It's actually a part of Union Pacific's heritage fleet. The Union Pacific is the only rail company in America, or at least Class 1 railroad, that has a heritage fleet. Because not only do they have the Big Boy, which is this giant mammoth of a locomotive, they also have the Union Pacific 844, which is a northern class express passenger train, or at least an express steam locomotive. These things are really cool. They were actually made to operate a 100-mile-per-hour express service in between Chicago to Los Angeles. Pretty much through the route that a lot of people would know these days on the Amtrak line as the California Zephyr, but back in the day, it was called the Challenger, because of how challenging the route is and everything like that. But still, it was a really, really cool locomotive. I really like this one as well. But the Big Boy is probably one of the most famous locomotives in the United States, maybe even in the world, next to the Flying Scotsman and the Southern Daylight, or the Southern Pacific Daylight. But still, this thing is really, really cool. Also, let's see here. Another one that I would say is really neat and a lot of people don't know about this one, is the John Henry. This was freaking insane, this thing right here. Believe it or not, this is actually a steam locomotive.
That right there?
This is a steam locomotive. It runs off of a steam turbine. And it was insane. This thing actually was so strong and so powerful. There was multiple accounts of it breaking the knuckle couplers from the back of the consist because it was just that strong. Like, this thing had torque and power. This thing was insane. It was operated by the Norfolk and Western, which was a big user of locomotives, but this thing was extremely expensive and very difficult to maintain. But technically, by every single aspect of tractive effort, weight, and also size, the John Henry was the largest steam locomotive ever made in history. This thing actually looks really cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I think it was like one of the most bizarre things ever made in the like end of the steam era, but it's cool for that reason. It's like, this thing is absolutely sick. Also, someone said, what is a knuckle coupler? Let me see if I can find you a knuckle coupler, or at least a closer look at a knuckle coupler. So these are very common here in the United States. There are these kinds of couplers here. In Europe, they have a different form of coupling system. I forgot what it's actually called, but in America, these are called the knuckle couplers, and these are what we use to connect locomotives with other rolling stock and other rolling stock with other rolling stock. It's a universal coupler for all things locomotive. So pretty cool to see. I like these things, me personally. I think they're like the best coupler in the world. I'm really biased on that, but I think they are. I just think they're neat. But also, I hope that does address that whole thing well about the locomotives, because the John, like, I wish that one of these things still existed, because it would be freaking sick. Now, it probably wouldn't be running. It would probably just be a museum piece, but it would be freaking sick to see this thing, because these things were huge. Like, let me actually go get y'all the length on this thing, because it was massive. So, length. The locomotive and tender was 161 and a half feet long.
Wow, that's pretty long.
That's pretty freaking long. Let me actually put that into perspective with a Boeing 737. You know, the ones that fall out of the sky. I don't mean that. I'm just kidding. Don't hurt me, Boeing, please. But let me go over here and let me go get you all the dimensions of a 737, or at least one of the earlier 737s, not the Max. So let's see here. Dang, they made this really hard to read, didn't they? Oh, here we go. All right, so the Boeing 737 Max, the longest one of the class. That's why it has so many problems, but that's kind of like a rabbit hole in itself. The longest Boeing 737 Max is the Boeing 737 Max 10, which is 143.7 feet long, meaning that this locomotive, with the tender attached, is about 20 feet longer than a Boeing 737, to give you the idea of how big this thing is.
That's crazy, man.
Man, that's legit nuts, man. But still, I hope that does address that one well. Walter A. Lakota, really interesting thing to bring up. But I'll be honest with you, I've actually started to become a little bit detached, to be entirely honest, from steam engines, because diesel engines, at least from what I've been researching and learning about, and this is why they became like the go-to for every railroad ever, and everyone abandoned steam trains, is because steam trains are very maintenance heavy and also are prone to run into problems where they have to be withdrawn from service and then serviced. Which really like forced a lot of railroad companies to hire a lot more engineers than really were needed, really a whole bunch more staff than was needed, and also to have to buy a whole bunch more locomotives than needed. It was actually crazy when the Blue Goose, which I'll show y'all right here, the Santa Fe Blue Goose. Let me see. I gotta type in Santa Fe before it, because it will not find it otherwise. Blue Goose. The Goo Lagoon. Here we go. The Santa Fe Class 3460. This one right here. Let me see. They don't have a color picture of this thing. This is what was... Okay, anyways. Moving on from that. When one of these things ran from Los Angeles to Chicago without requiring maintenance along the entire way, it was considered a miracle from the Lord. And what's even crazier is that this was the only locomotive to do that in history, to run this long without requiring servicing, like as far as the steam locomotive went. So steam locomotives were really maintenance heavy to run. They were kind of finicky. And so for that reason, the diesel locomotive is just better, or the electric locomotive. I'm also a big fan of electric as well for for locomotive traction. It's pretty cool in its own right. But still, steam trains are the coolest. Like while they're not great from like a logistical end or a business side of things, steam locomotives are truly some of the coolest. But let me see if I can show y'all the Santa Fe Blue Goose in its actual blue color in like a colorized picture, because they were really, really bizarre, because it was literally blue. This is what they looked like. It's a little...
Excuse me, I was trying to drink some water real quick just then, but I like the blue color, actually. That's actually unique. I personally wouldn't pick it, but it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, it's not my favorite, but still, it is neat that it's blue. You know, it's like, that's kind of rare,
It's a big
actually.
blue passport.
Man, I mean, it's a blue goose. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support, Walter Lakota. It's time for us to get on to the second one that you threw in.
All right, and the second one that Walter threw in is a massive $200 donation, and thank you very much, Walter, for that second support of the night. Massive support. The biggest of the night, the long-lasting support. He said, me again. And also, for the Enforcer, questioning what type of diesel locomotive engine is your favorite. Is it a GP9, GP35, SD42, and variants, or steam locomotives? And as for the war, it seems Ukraine military Kursk offensive has more than what it seems to be, and it has more phases than shown.
And I thank you so much for the massive support, Walter Lakota, the largest super chat of the night. As a matter of fact, you asked the question, do I like the GP35, the GP9, the SD40, or some other kind of a diesel locomotive or a steam engine? If I had to give you an answer on that, Walter Lakota, I would have to say that my favorite locomotive would actually, it's one that like is kind of mainstream, I'm not gonna lie, but I still like them. I think they're neat. It's the EMD, or the General Electric EMD F7. This one is actually on, let me see here. Wait, hang on, this is, hold up everyone. Okay, so this is Grand Canyon Limited. Anyways, same thing. It's this one right here, the F7s. I think they're really cool. I like their streamlined appearance. It was really the beginning of the diesel locomotive kind of taking over in America. And while the Alco company kind of got that title, you know, because Alco was kind of the first one to create these streamlined kind of diesels, I think that General Electric's EMD F7 was probably the best looking one that ever came out. I mean, I just think they're neat. They're really cool. Now, the SD40 is a close second, because the SD40 is America's train. Like, this is the most commonly purchased locomotive, well, diesel locomotive in American history outside of the GP9 scene here. This was the most purchased diesel locomotive in American history, period. Nothing's ever beat it yet. The SD40 is the only thing that came close, but I'd still say that these were really freaking cool. I mean, I just really like them. There's a load of different variants that they came in too. Like, you got the Boston, Maine, the Pennsylvania Railroad's livery looked really similar to this. New York Central ran a lot of them. I mean, there's just loads of these things. I mean, they were really neat, looked really cool. The horsepower on them wasn't that bad either, if I remember correct, at least with its B unit. It had like 3,000 horsepower, which isn't much. Like, when you think about it, it's an entire lead locomotive and a B unit, and the SD40 has 3,000 horsepower just flat out without a B unit or a slug or anything like that. But still, I would say that the F7, just for its aesthetic, is probably my favorite locomotive, but the SD40 is a really, really close second, especially the SD40s in the Burlington Northern livery. Do they have a picture of that on here? They do not. Also, CSX's livery in the modern day isn't that bad. This is actually a very modified SD40, because they added like a whole new kind of a ventilation system to the rear. But let me see. Let me go grab a Burlington Northern. Burlington Northern SD40. Here we go. So these would be my honest favorite. This is a model of them, but I like the livery of Burlington Northern. I thought it was a really cool one. I hate that it disappeared because of BNSF and the merger and everything, but still really cool looking to me. I like them, and this would be my favorite variant of the SD40. But with that, I hope that does address that. fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for asking a very interesting question, Walter E. Lakota, and also showing that you know a little bit about trains too. And you're the merchant marine. That's really cool that you know a little bit about trains yourself. And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would say that it does seem like the Kursk offensive has more going on to it than what meets the eye. I would certainly say that the Ukrainians are trying to plant themselves in there, but I would say that their objectives aren't really going to be extending that much farther than where they are, except for the western flank, at least at this moment. But they're trying to create a constant requirement for Russia to keep a large amount of their combat forces inside of Russia instead of fighting inside of Ukraine. For some reason, that will probably reveal itself later on in the future. And so with that, huge thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and thank you for enjoying this channel a great deal and always helping this thing to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
Yes, indeed. Big shout out to Walter as well. And with that, moving on to our next super chat, we have one from Gregory Weisbrook, who puts in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, Gregory, as well, for the support. Very generous. He said, thanks for all the hard work, and I also enjoyed the vacation, by the way, as well. He said, take a question from the chat.
And I get to say, thank you so much for the support, Gregory Weisbrook. Weisbrook. I got that wrong the first time. I can't even do it again because I get it wrong trying to do it wrong. But still, thank you so much for enjoying our hard work, and thank you so much for wanting us to enjoy our vacation. It's going to be a very fun one. And someone just said, enjoy your vacation in Russia. And that one was cute enough they got banned. We're certainly not going to Russia. We're not going outside of America. America is the greatest country on earth, and there's so much to see and so much to do in America. Why in the world even leave? I'm just kidding. We would go elsewhere if we had the time. Like, I would probably go to Europe and go wander around over there, but we don't have that kind of time. And also, we don't have that kind of money. Do you all know how much an airline ticket costs to get to Europe? A lot of money. It's like $1,300 just one way, I think, if I remember that right. And to get to Poland, jeez, it's like $1,900. It's crazy. And what's even crazy is that the hot dog man does it like twice a year. It's like, where the hell is he getting the money from? You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. But anyways, with that, I do thank you so much once again for the support. We are going to be enjoying our vacation. We are going to be having an incredibly fun time, and I cannot wait to show y'all everything that we'll get to do. I keep saying that over and over and over, but y'all will see it when y'all see it, when we get back, and y'all will be like, wow, that was really cool. And hopefully I'll be able to tell y'all some really cool rabbit hole stuff about some of the things that we're going to do and see along the way, you know? But with that, still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the question from the chat is going to go to Nemesis, who said, did you read about the Russians using chemical weapons?
I did read about them using chemical weapons. What they were specifically using was chloropicrin, and it's kind of a chemical weapon, kind of not. Technically, by the rules of war, it certainly is a chemical weapon, and it's a violation of the rules of war, but a lot of people would know chloropicrin as tear gas or CS gas, and so kind of sort of it's not really that unacceptable. It's not like mustard gas or White Cross or anything like that. It's more so kind of a more mundane chemical warfare weapon, but still, nevertheless, it is chemical warfare. And so, yes, I have heard of those stories, and we've also seen video and picture evidence, not only of the Russians using it, but the Ukrainians have also used it a little bit as well. In 1 second, Matthew, filibuster for me really quickly, because I'm going to try and address something here in the background, and for some reason I can't multitask tonight. And so...
Okay. Oh, I'm going to filibuster here for a minute. I'm going to. Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm going to filibuster. But anyways, let's see here. It's number 39 in the spreadsheet, by the way. And also, we're just tending to something in the background real quick. Enforcer wants to look at something, but he's looking at it right now.
We will be skipping that one.
All right, we'll be skipping that one.
All right, and with that, now that we got the filibuster out of the way, sorry everyone, that was a little bit weird. Sorry, Matthew, for putting you in that position, but I didn't know how else to do that. I was like, I have to go and read this. I don't even know how in the world I can't multitask now. Usually I'm good at that, but nowadays not so much. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to GunFox61, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, GunFox. GunFox has really been supporting the channel big league recently, and we really do appreciate GunFox. And he's a longtime channel legend as well. He puts in a 50, and thank you very much. He said, history, 1864, American Civil War. He said, at the Battle of Globe Tavern, Union forces attempted to sever the Weldon Railroad during the siege of Petersburg in 1937. A lightning strike started the Blackwater Fire in Shoshone National Forest, Wyoming. And question from the chat.
And thank you so much for the support. And that is very interesting to hear. The Battle of Petersburg, or really the Siege of Petersburg more so, just south of Richmond right down here. Really major battle in the Civil War, really the battle that kind of ended the American Civil War, because after the Union took the city of Petersburg, Robert E. Lee practically refused President Davis's request to go down and try and break up the Union forces that had taken Petersburg and open up a corridor out of Richmond, because Robert E. Lee at that point said that it was practically impossible. And then it wasn't that much longer afterwards that Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse to the Union forces and to General Grant, ending the Civil War after 4 bloody years. It's a really interesting story, kind of like that entire battle, because it was like the 19th century's equivalent to the end of World War II with how it went. Also, something else that people may not know is that once the Civil War ended, Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy, actually tried to escape the country by dressing up as a woman, so that way he wouldn't be checked. But at the time, it was considered a little bit strange for a woman to have a beard, and he still had his beard. So they were like, hey, that's Jefferson Davis. And then they laughed at him, and then they took pictures of him. Like, no joke, they took pictures of him. And so you can actually find those pictures online of Jefferson Davis dressed in a dress trying to escape the country. They didn't end up executing him or anything. They just ended up revoking his citizenship. He's one of the few Americans that ever had his citizenship revoked. Robert E. Lee also had his citizenship revoked as well. So they were a citizen of no country. Like, they were not a citizen of another country. They were not a citizen of the United States. But still, it's a really interesting kind of a part of history that no one really talks about, how the end of the Civil War really came around. And it's like, it's like that's a little bit of an interesting way to go. But anyways, let me see if I can find that for y'all. Let me see here. Let's see here. Hang on, folks. Dang, I can't find it because the website requires a subscription. Let's see. So, sadly, I can't find it and show it for y'all. I'd be dipped. But if someone can, let me know, because that would be funny. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that part fairly well. And also, the Shoshone. Is it the Shoshone or the Shoshone National Forest? Because I'm not really sure.
I think it's Shoshone.
And it's in Wyoming. So let's take a look here. And so where is this in Wyoming? Oh, we drove through this, man. We drove? Well, actually, we didn't. I don't think we did. Did we? Nah, we didn't. We didn't.
No, we didn't drive through that, I don't think. That's too remote.
Man, look at that, though. Look at the Shoshone National Forest. Now, that is a forest right there, Matthew. I might not be an expert, but that looks like forest to me.
I would like to see that in person right about now. I feel like my mind could use a good waterfall or two, or some water and some wilderness. I feel like I could use that right now. I would like to go wander through here, and I don't know what kind of snakes I got here, but I'll wander through here anyway.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be wandering through these woods trying to look for myself a proper American meal, like a bear.
You know, if you eat bear...
I would still get in my car, even in the Shoshone Forest. I would still bring my car, and I would skid over a snake if I saw one. I would still do it even in the park.
Like the style on that thing. But this is really pretty, actually. I really like this place, and I hate to hear that there was a fire here. There was something that had happened, some kind of a wildfire or something like that had happened near Yellowstone when we drove through it years ago. Which was pretty sad because it was kind of rough looking around there, at least in that area. It was on the southern end of the park, kind of near its exit. And look, here's the Grand Tetons, and then here's Jackson Hole, I believe it is.
Yeah. Oh, Jackson Hole. Oh man, the billionaire's hideout right there. I didn't care for that place very much because it's like, you know, when you come across an arrogant area where everybody's like trying to be a show off and stuff like that, Jackson Hole was like the place they all congregated in. I liked the scenery there, but the atmosphere was no good.
It was a little rough, I'm not gonna lie, and I would not revisit Jackson Hole again. It's not authentic, you know? Like, I remember there was a town, Matthew. There was a town up here somewhere. Where the hell was it? It was up here. It was up here somewhere. Livingston, I think it was. Didn't we drive out of Livingston? Didn't we?
I think we did.
This is it. This is it, Matthew. Right here. That little place. Remember they brought in the cattle carcass, you know, on the back of that truck to this place right
That's my
here.
place.
This is my
Matt's on it.
Say what?
Zoom in. It says Matt's. It's my place.
Oh, look at that! Look at that, man! Crazy! Hey, it's Matt's place.
It says Matt's chimichangas, I guess.
Matt's old-fashioned chip. It's just like, well, I love me some chip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what it is.
Can we go down the street? Is there just a blur on the camera here? Or... It's a smoke. So it's Matt's Butcher Shop and Deli.
Oh, and they have pop. They have pop. They don't even call it soda. Let's see. They call it beer. They call it wine. They have USADA choice meat that was chosen by the government themselves. They said this is the best meat. Have some meat. Let's see here. Yeah, it looks pretty neat, man. We should have stopped here and ate.
Man, we should have, but y'all was scared to, and so we didn't.
I was kind of scared too. I think that's the hotel we stayed in over there, though, or something on the other side of the street. Didn't we stay there?
I think we may have. It was really close to the highway. Yeah, it was. It was that place. Because I remember there was nothing out there but gravel, and there's the gravel right there.
Yeah, we were right across the street. We could have eaten good.
Man, we could have eaten well. We could have gotten some good meats. It would have been great. But beyond that, this was like a real place, like a place I'd enjoy because it's like real America. It's not like Jackson Hole, which feels really fake and like forced. This was legit, and I really appreciated this place for, you know, being quite sincere, in my honest opinion. Also, I like that the railroad ran right through the middle of the town as nature intended. But still, I liked it. I thought it was neat. And when we were driving out of here, they had a heavy-duty pickup truck with a flatbed, and it was bringing in, chained down to the back, a cow carcass, head already removed, into this place, and we were like, oh, look at that. And we were like, you don't see that like anywhere at all, ever, period. And so I guess they were bringing
I was trying to figure out why they chained him down. I'm like, what was this, like a rabid cow or something? They had that thing chained down like it was Hannibal Lecter on the back of that pickup bed. I was like, apparently this thing's going to get away if they don't chain it up.
Man, I'm telling you, man, that thing might get up and run off. It's just got that American spirit in it, you know what I mean? Hoo-la! But anyway, I hope that does address that the best I can. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Gunfox. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the question from the chat is going to go to the Observer, who said, and Matt, if you opened a restaurant like you just saw right there, what style of food would you serve? That's a good question, by the way. If I ever did open a restaurant, which actually, that's not a bad idea. A Matt's restaurant, that wouldn't be bad at all. Wouldn't open it in Birmingham, but I might open it somewhere else. I had this genius idea a while back. Why didn't somebody get like the like meal subscription box, like HelloFresh or something like that, and they get the recipe cards and they see which ones are good, and then they open a restaurant based on that? Would you get sued if you did that? I don't know, but it seems like a good idea because I'm not a culinary expert. I might cook up some beans or something to serve it. Would decided that chained up cow that they brought in or something. But I'm seriously speaking though, I'll probably serve not that frou-frou like Michelin star stuff, but probably just like normal, like, let me think. Like, I guess just American fare. No hot dogs, but just American fare of a more upscale sort. That might be pretty neat. Maybe a Chipotle derivative. That would be pretty neat as well. But Enforcer, what kind of restaurant would you open up?
A hamburger store. Like, that's it. Like it's just a hamburger
store?
Yeah, you want, like, you know, like come in, sit down, and have a hamburger, you know? You want some chips or fries or something with that? That would be it. I would just open up a hamburger store.
Interesting, a hamburger store. It's not going to be a hamburger restaurant?
No, Matthew, that's too high class. It's a hamburger store. We sell hamburgers here. Like, that's what I had to run, man. Like, it would be
you
cheap.
refrigerate your meats?
No, it'd be fresh, but you know, it would still be a hamburger store. It's not a restaurant. It's not a fine dining experience. You just buy a hamburger. Like, you know, you want a hamburger? There you go. Not a lot of customization either. I'm not getting into frou fancy culinary hamburger. It's a hamburger with your classics. You got ketchup, mustard, cheese if you want a cheeseburger. You know, some lettuce, tomato, and onion. You can either remove or you can have it all as is. That is what it is. Get yourself a burger. That's as simple as it can be.
You know, if I opened a burger place, like I would always come up with something interesting to attract the customers. I would probably call it Wimpy's, and I would like make up those Wimpy hamburgers that you used to eat, and I would have a slogan that said "It's good a week from Tuesday" or something like that. I'll do something like that. A Wimpy's with the Wimpy man on the logo.
Man, I tell you, man, that probably would be a good one, but then you probably get a cease and desist from someone somewhere. They'd be like, "Hey, stop it!" You know what I mean? No, I'm not.
I think the copyright ran out already. I think it was such a long time ago. I think you're probably good to go.
Has Wimpy's copyright run out? Let's see. Let's see here. Oh, what? There's what? Matthew, there's already a Wimpy.
What?
There's a Wimpy, Matthew. It's
well, let me see it. Is it really? Is it themed after Wimpy?
It's
What
named,
the hell?
It's named Wimpy.
It's a wholly owned subsidiary. What the hell? Let's see. It's in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's not even here.
But Matthew, it's here. It's Wimpy. It was made at the same time as the Popeye cartoons. It's Wimpy.
That seems a little bit sketchy. Well, what do they serve? Grits.
What? Grits? Where do you see that? Where?
It says formerly known as Wimpy Grits.
Where in the world do you see that? I need to find that.
It's right below the Wimpy logo. It says formerly Wimpy Grits and Wimpy Bar.
Wimpy Grills, Matthew.
Oh, grills? It looks like grits.
My goodness, you have me thinking they're actually named Wimpy Grits. I was like, what the hell?
Look, it's like the size of a grain of salt on my screen. I'm doing the best I can to read this.
Wimpy Grits? Dude, no one would buy anything from a restaurant called a Wimpy Grits. They'd be thinking the grits if you wanted now. They'd be like, I don't want no Wimpy Grits. Oh my goodness.
Do we have reviews on the place? Is it any good?
Let's see. So it started in America, but let's see here. That one's looking a little rough.
It's not even the same branding on that one. It's just like it says Wimpy with a tan sign.
During the 1970s, Wimpy refused entry to women on their own after midnight. This may have been because of an assumption they might be working women. Well, that's news. That's news. What the hell? That was a company policy.
Man, Wimpy was out here. Wimpy was being a little misogynist. Damn, Wimpy going hardcore, man. Jeez.
Dude, Wimpy would see a married couple come in, and Wimpy would be going, "There's nothing in the world that..." No, that woman ain't coming in here. It's 12:01 in the morning. She can't come in here. No biscuit for her. Like, something like that.
Damn, Wimpy.
Dude, Wimpy was out here hashing out the lawsuits. Like, if this happened nowadays, man, there'd be lawsuits out the kazoo. Like, it's... I guess the working men can have a hamburger, but the working women, you're tough out of luck. No Wimpy for you, pal.
Wimpy said, "There's nothing in the world that can compare to discrimination. Lawsuit, fair and well."
A lawsuit lives for the money it gets. It's a thrill on the bill of fare. Oh my lord! I can't believe that. I can't believe there was a little sentence in there for that. Wimpy's putting it out like they're not they're putting the women out for the large. That's something new. But let's see here. Well, what else about them? Let's see here. Second management buyout occurred backed by the Bank of Scotland. Huh, okay. IRA bombing
somewhere.
On October 26, 1981, Kenneth Haworth, an explosives officer with London's Met, was killed while attempting to defuse a bomb planted by the Provisional Irish Republican Army in the basement of a Wimpy's in Oxford Street. So not only are
they get into the basement of a Wimpy's, like how the hell did they get it in there?
How really? Like, dude, what is going on with Wimpies? Like, dude, Wimpies is a whole. So, what does it look like though? Actually, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, you know, it's not like bad on the inside or anything. It's kind of retro.
Yeah, it looks all right. Kind of looks like an In-N-Out burger a little bit.
You know what kind of looks like? It looks like 1960s Britain.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of does. Let's see. The Wimpy brand returned to the UAE when Kuwait-based Americana Group opened 3 locations within the city of Abu Dhabi in December of 2022.
Abu Dhabi. This sounds sketchy all the way around, not gonna lie. But is there a Popeyes? Oh, well, yeah, obviously there's a Popeyes. Never mind, there's a chicken joint called Popeyes. It's a competitor to Zaxby's. That's right, there's a Popeyes. There's Popeye and a Wimpy's. I think Popeye did better than Wimpy when it came to the enterprises.
Did you really just ask if there was a Popeyes, knowing that people have been shot and killed in this area over the Popeye sandwich?
Man, I never eat there. The biscuits are dry as hell.
Man, those biscuits are murder weapons right there. This restaurant here, I honestly, I'm like, look, this might be a heated opinion. I'm not really that big of a fan of Popeyes. I don't really like their chicken. Every time I've eaten their chicken, I've gotten sick. I don't know what it is about it. If it's like the seasoning or something, but I just don't like Popeyes. Like, it's But they do have 3,705 restaurants, so it's actually a pretty big chain, at least here in America, with rising profits. But you know, I don't know.
Why is he holding that hamburger like that? You see that? Look at the. What is he? Why are they holding it like that?
Death grip on that thing, dude. Jeez, he's trying to choke that thing out and get a murder charge on this chicken or something.
That chicken is like literally begging for help. The sandwich is like freaking trying to crawl out the wrapper.
Man, dude, he's like, look at this chicken sandwich, and when it looks at you, like the sandwich, like the buns start talking like a mouth, and it's like, call the police or something like that. It's like, oh
Creepy.
no. Dude, this is the death grip on the chicken sandwich. It is never in the life of me. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least what kind of restaurant I'd run. Thank you so much for sponsoring the live chat and helping this channel to keep on running, Gunfox. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next super chat here, we have one from Sir Real User 9 who puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Sir Real User, for that support. That's very generous. They said Spike was hanging out 27th of February 91 and saw a 500-pound surprise delivered to 128 people in a barracks. Also saw Shock and Awe kick off 15 January, Eagles and Tornadoes in the first FW.
And that is really cool. And thank you for supporting the channel and helping it to keep on running. It sounds like Spike is a bit of a Gulf War veteran out there. Interesting to hear. And I would have to say that must have been one hell of a thing to see the beginning of the Gulf War back when the air campaign started, because that was something. I don't think there's ever been an air campaign that large since. But still, huge thanks to you so much once again for support. Really cool to know that Spike is a Gulf War veteran and was around to see this stuff. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, Sir Real User 9, because it's folks like you who help to keep this channel possible and help it to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And a huge thanks to you once again.
All right, and moving on, let's see here. Daha said in the live chat, Enforcers meets and eats. that might be an interesting restaurant. Interesting name, but interesting. But anyways, moving on here to our next one, we have a $50 super chat from Michael. And I don't see any comment attached to this, but Michael, thank you very much for that very generous $50 support. We appreciate it very much. And of course, that helps keep the channel running. So Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Michael. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support means a lot and helps us to keep this channel running. And I thank you so much once again for enjoying this channel, appreciating it, and helping it to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here 6 and 7 days a week, working nonstop to get the news out to each and every one of y'all. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And before we move on to the next one in sequence, Matthew, I've seen that I have been challenged and disproven on a historical statement that I made earlier, and I tried to look into it really quickly on my phone, and it does appear that what J Bagwell is saying is true. So could we read that really quickly so that we can get that out of the way and disprove something I said that was false?
All right, so longtime channel legend and friend of the channel, Jay Bagwell, puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Jay, as always, for that support. And also, it's good to hear from you once again. He said, Lee was never photographed in a dress, but a northern newspaper cartoonist made a pretty good of living on that story for a long time. And a great stream, guys.
Thank you so much for the support, Jay Bagwell. And I pulled it up, and Lee was never found in a dress. That I can confirm, but I said Davis, President Jefferson Davis, and when I pulled that up, I also found out that they did the same thing to Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis was not captured wearing a dress. He was wearing some sort of like a rain overcoat that men and women wore, and so because it looked because he was walking away from the Union soldiers when they spotted him, it looked a little bit like he was wearing some kind of like a woman's like overcoat of a sort. They said that he was wearing a dress, although that was untrue because he was actually still wearing some kind of a suit from that time. So that is actually untrue for both Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis. So I stand corrected. There is no pictures. There is no proof. And you know something, Matthew? That was the last holdover right there from that 10th grade history teacher that I had a lot of problems with because they were getting a lot of history wrong, and I never disproved that claim that they made right there. And so I have run with that since 10th grade, which means I've been sitting with the story for about 6 or 7 years, and it's been wrong the entire time. That person was literally just running the tabloid history class, like nothing they said was true. And now the one thing I banked on, I was like, okay, everything else they said was wrong, but this one thing, I've never disproven it, so I'm going to go with it. And I said it, and they were wrong. That is the worst history teacher ever. They should be fired.
We had that one, which got everything wrong, and then we went from that one, then we went to a batshit crazy history teacher, which was mental, that would go berserk in the middle of the classroom and stuff like that, throwing pencils across the room and stuff like that. I went from the one who got everything wrong to that crazy one. I think you had the crazy one as well that was like a psycho. I think she got fired shortly after we left the school.
Oh, man. Who in the world was it?
It was the one you had to go and tell off that gave you a hard time.
Text me the name, because I'm having a hard time remembering who they are.
I honestly can't remember the name, but I remember the person vividly.
Wait a minute, hang on. Let me send it to you, because maybe we can have some consensus here. 1 second. This is the propeller.
That was the one that didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the psycho one, the one after that. The one that, they did the volleyball thing and all that stuff, and they were crazy as hell. They would lose it pretty much every time they showed us the classroom, like stepping foot in the school, like set them off.
I don't think I had that one, to be honest with you, because I remember that I had the one teacher who was a private school teacher in 9th grade, Matthew, and couldn't take it. You had her too, and then she left. And then there was the other one that got everything wrong, and then there was the one who was the dude who had the German Shepherd. You know the one I'm talking about. That was actually, like, he knew his stuff. But in case y'all are wondering, like, what was the interesting thing about the guy, he was a little off a little bit, but it was not in like a bad way. He was just a little off, so he was kind of a little weird. But still, that was one of my history teachers. And then in the last year, I had that really psycho, manic, depressive person that didn't teach history.
What's that one?
Oh, wait a minute. The one that actually gave me the finger, and so I had to say, if you do that again, there's going to be issues. That one?
Yeah, that psycho idiot threw like a box of mechanical pencils across the room. One struck me in the side of the leg, and I nearly went off in the middle of the classroom, like in front of everybody, because it pissed me off so bad. That woman was a nut. Yeah, we honestly had a lot of nuts in high school and stuff like that. Like, there were a couple of good teachers in there, but we had some like crazy ass people that were teaching in that high school. They were almost as crazy as some of the students.
Man, I'll tell you, like, Matthew just reminded me of that story. That woman was not a history teacher, neither was she a teacher at all. She was one of those people who had taken a drink out of the whole political chalice and became a champion of her own domestic political ideals, which I really hate regardless of whatever political ideals you have. I really hate it when people as teachers start to try and push their political opinions on students, because we had that in our high school in both directions. So you had people from, just being frank, the right and the left, trying to pull you one way or the other in each class. And it's like, I just don't want to, like, it's like, that's your thing. You vote your way. I'm going to vote my way. Don't get me involved in what you're thinking, because I really don't care. That was my opinion even back then. But this woman was legitimately crazy. and just was stupid. I mean, like really stupid. Had a really high opinion of themselves, but they were the dumbest ever. Because I remember one time. Because remember that phrase that she'd always say, "Are you freaking kidding?" You know, like whenever she would talk about anything, it was always, "Are you freaking kidding?" So I found out on one of them, she was talking about the Amazon rainforest or something like that, and how, you know, it was something crazy. It was like the working class should rise up and slit the throats of the Brazilian leadership, or, you know, some stupid crap like that, as she would normally do. And so I sat there and I was like, huh, that's a little bit of a wild take right there. So then I went out and got in my car because I have early release from school, sat down, and I pulled up this Amazon rainforest stuff because I was like, I think what some of she was saying was untrue. And so then I found this YouTube video, man. It was the first one that showed up in the search result, clicked on it, and it was literally everything she said word for word. So what she had done that day is that she had watched that YouTube video before she started teaching class, apparently memorized everything that the person said in the video word for word, and then restated it in front of the whole class like it was an original idea.
That's not surprising at all. She barely taught anything. Like, I'm not joking. Like, literally, that was honestly like a traumatizing class for me. Outside of another one, there was a math teacher I had as well that was like psycho, like that woman as well. That literally showed up every single day and was like reliving like bad moments of her life in front of the class, like recounting them to everybody. And we would never learn the math. She'd just show up and start talking about the bad stuff that's happening in her life, and not in a way of like sympathy, but like taking her anger out in the classroom about it and stuff like that. It's like, golly, man, I'm not gonna lie. Like, thinking back about all that crap gives me like PTSD thinking about how like the teachers were in that. We went to an interesting school, to say the least, and it was a little bit wild.
But let me tell that story, Matthew, about that stupid teacher flipping me off. So, you know, at some point, because as y'all know, and this has never changed, Matthew can tell y'all, I've been like this since at least like 5th grade. Like, my knowledge has never really improved much. It's spread out a little bit over a wider topics, but it's generally been like this since about 5th grade. So I've always been on top of the game on history. Everything else was kind of like to the side. I'm not the greatest at like English. I'm certainly not the greatest at math. I'm horrific at math, but I got the one thing I do well, which is history. I love history up and down. And so at some point when I was in this class, because I was a senior at this point, I sat there and I asked the lunatic teacher that we're talking about, the one that was throwing pencils and stuff, a question. And so they decided to respond to me in a smart-ass way. And of course, being a kid, my general inclination was to not be a smartass in return, because, you know, my parents taught me to never try and be disrespectful to anyone, even if they seem to be coming off a bad way. Maybe they're having a rough day. So then I tried to make a little bit of a joke or something to try and like blow it off. So then the teacher went, I wonder, and put up the middle finger and then rubbed it on her forehead. And so I sat there and I thought, did she just flick me off? And I looked over at someone and I said, did she just flick me off? They said, yeah. So I went, oh, okay. So then I waited for the class to end. And then that teacher went and wandered off to the gym at the school to go teach a volleyball class. So then I got up from where I was, because I had to go sit out in the car for a minute and think about that, because I was like, am I going to let that slide? And I was like, no, I think I'm tired of this crazy ass person. So I went back in there, went to the gym, and right in front of her whole volleyball thing that she was doing or whatever, like this little group, I said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? She said, yeah, sure. I said, hey, you flipped me off in class, didn't you? She said, no, I didn't. I said, don't bullshit me. You did. If you do that again, we're going to have a problem. You understand? And so she said, I'm sorry. And I said, you better be sorry. And so then I wandered off, went home, and for the rest of the school year, for about the last 4 months or so, before the Wuhan Whirlybird came around, the school got canceled early, and then we all just graduated anyways, I didn't get crap from that person a single time after that. And I was like, what a stupid thing, like to be a bully to people who are forced to be in your class. And then when I stand up to the idiot and I'm like, this shit's going to stop now, they just stop. It's like, that's stupid. Like that was really stupid. So
let me ask anybody else. Did anyone else have like a really interesting kind of like a bad like high school experience? I know high school kind of generally sucks and stuff like that, but I remember I had a racist teacher that was genuinely racist and like was acting very racist toward me and a few other friends I had and stuff like that for just no reason other than racism. I had the crazy one that showed up trauma dumping on people every day. Then I had the crazy political one that you're talking about. I dealt with her as well with that smart ass attitude she had, and just crazy, like honestly crazy, legitimately crazy teachers like all over the place. Is that normal? Has anybody else dealt with that like across the board in their high school? Because I mean, we had like some doozies that we were having.
Yeah, it was a rough kind of a school, and I was like, dang, and I would try and be reasonable with people, I try and joke around and be nice. And generally I got along with everyone. I didn't really have problems with any of the other folks going to the school, like, well, except for the people in JROTC, but I think all those people had their own problems, somehow, some way. Because that's really, like, Matthew, thinking about it, that was the only place I ran into problems with people at school was in JROTC, and like like I got in it, I thought it was cool, and then I found out I had double major scoliosis and I wouldn't be able to join the military anyway. So then it was kind of like dead weight. It wasn't like there would be anything to get out of it at that point. Like like if y'all don't know, if you're in JROTC in high school for I think 3 years, you end up joining the military at E3, I believe, these days. So you get knocked up a couple of pay grades just for doing that class for a couple of years in high school. But once I found out I had double major scoliosis, I was like, what's the point? I can't join anyway, so there's no benefit in that. And also, it's not prepping me for ROTC in college or anything, and I can't do any of that. So what would be the point? And so
that's honestly the only thing I had fun in high school. Really was the JRTC thing. I had fun. I did a piano class that was pretty fun. I took German, which was pretty decent as well, but it was online, so it wasn't in person. And then I did JRTC. I didn't do the robotics thing. I didn't do the band in high school either. I only did that in middle school. I didn't like the high school band environment was pretty bad, like a lot of drugs and stuff like that going around. I didn't want to be near it. But yeah, I mean, overall the JRTC thing wasn't bad. It had its rough moments and stuff, but it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and also I just saw Drew say something about I don't know if you see that, Matthew. Drew D. They said something about a teacher doing a particular thing, watching a certain thing. Oh, we had it worse because we had a teacher that watched it, but not only that, leaned back in their chair and started going to town in front of an entire class. Like it was a thing. Like and then they ended up getting put on
Jeffrey Tubin.
Yeah, and it was, and then they only got put on administrative leave, I think, and then they quietly got fired. Nothing came of it, but I was like, huh, that's something. That's new. And it was, yeah, our school experience wasn't really the greatest, but it is what it is. We made it through. We survived. But some of the teachers were absolutely whack. There were some great ones though, like that one English teacher, Matthew, that you and me had, I think, in 11th grade. That was a pretty solid English teacher. They were from Tennessee, remember?
Yeah, they weren't from here. That was the reason why they weren't from Alabama. So it was like, okay, a normal person, fine. Like we have a normal teacher that's like that has manners and acts decent and stuff like that. But they were from a whole other state. And once they got into our state, they realized, this actually isn't what I thought it was. I remember she said that too. She's like, I don't know if I was really expecting certain things or something like that. She put it real political. I was like, you should have seen that coming. You moved to the backwoods of Alabama. This is all you can expect.
Man, yeah, it was rough. And then what was even better is that every single teacher that was really like weird, like in a way where you're like, this person may not be well. They would be like, do you know what it's like down in Montgomery? Because that was the town nearby from our school, Montgomery, Alabama. It's a war zone down there. Rival gangs are gunning each other down in the halls. I almost got shot one day. It's like, oh, okay, so everyone we have as a teacher is a veteran of the battlefield down south. All right, that's good to know. And then they treat you like they would treat me and Matthew, okay, some of them would. They would treat everyone like this, like you were a Crip or a Blood just wandering through the school. It's like, I'm just a dude. It's like I'm doing nothing. I'm just going to the restroom. Like I'm just going to the restroom and going back to class. I don't do anything wrong. I'm good. And I'm being treated like I'm some kind of a gang member, because what are you doing out here in the hall? What are you doing? You trying to meet someone? It's like, no, I'm just trying to go piss. I'm sure there's someone doing something really stupid in the restroom right now, like smoking weed or snorting coke or something else. I'm sure someone's trying to have a child in there right now, but I'm just trying to go to the restroom. That's all. I'm just trying to get back to the class. And it was bizarre. It was the worst. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. We've rabbit-holed really long on a couple of things tonight, but still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Eason, who puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Eason, for that support as well. They said, love you guys, and thanks for WD-40ing my ability to read Russian.
And Thank you so much for the support, and thank you for really learning a little bit about Russian. I didn't think I'd ever teach anyone Russian, but apparently I know just a little bit about it to be able to make it happen. And so I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It helps us to make this thing possible, and it helps us to hopefully rub off a little bit of Russian. I don't know a lot of it. I know how to read it a little bit, but I don't really know how to speak it fluently or anything. But still, thank you so much for learning a little bit from it still. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Alan Orchard, as well as Dixie LaFleur, and also Natasha Millman. They put in each a $20 donation, and Natasha put in a $10, and no comments attached to any of them. But thank you very much, Alan, Dixie, and Natasha for supporting the channel, and we appreciate it very much. You're helping to get the lights on. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you to Alan, Dixie, and Natasha for y'all's support. Each one of y'all threw in support without any comments. And while y'all don't throw any comments in, we are still greatly appreciative of y'all's support. It helps us to make this channel possible each and every single day. If it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling. So I got to give a huge thanks and a shout out to y'all once again. And so with that, thank you so much. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Mike Powell, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Mike Powell, for that support. He said, I wish I could do more. And don't worry about it, Mike. We appreciate all support. He said, a question, how do you know so much about geography and history, etc.? It blows my mind. And LSA.
Thank you so much for the support, Mike Powell. Now, I don't know everything, and actually, Jay Bagwell helped to clarify. I don't know everything. I know enough to get stories a little bit correct. Sometimes, though, going off of bad information, kind of like that story about Jefferson Davis wearing a dress. So I don't know everything, but as far as the voluminous knowledge, it just comes from having a really big fascination with things. Anything, really. I find most everything interesting. Some things a little more interesting than others. I'm sure many of y'all know what those are. Things like war, things like history, well, really history at large. Things like trains, you know, also planes. Like, I know a good bit about planes. It's just I don't talk about them that much because it isn't really that interesting. Like, planes are interesting, and I've learned and read a lot about them, but they're not that interesting, you know? Like, to the point I'd really love to talk and all that stuff about them. But the main reason why I know a lot is because I just read a lot, and just read volumes of stuff. Like, whenever I was interested in anything, like, I'll tell you all this, like, when I go somewhere on a vacation, or when I look anywhere, like at night, I'll just sit here on my computer, and I'm like, this looks cool, what about here? And then I'll be like, Green River, like, that's kind of neat. What's around Green River? And then I'll read something like, the Union Pacific's main line actually travels from Cheyenne to Salt Lake City through this area, and this is where a large amount of the freight traffic traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast travels through, is through this area in Wyoming, or further south on the BNSF main lines from California through to Texas. And I'll be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I'll read something like that, and then I'll learn about it, and then I'll research it a lot more and try and figure out the history of how those railroads were built and everything about them, and then I'll be like, oh, that's really cool, and then I'll move on to something else. I generally do that with everything. Like, Matthew can tell you that one of the most annoying things that I probably do is that I will, like, just research anything about everything. Like forks. Like, this is one that I remember explicitly because everyone got so annoyed with this one, Matthew included, is that one day I was eating with a fork, and I looked at the fork, and I was like, how in the world did the fork get this shape? Because it couldn't have looked like this forever. Like, there had to have been some sort of an evolution to the fork, because we clearly didn't have forks at the start. So then I went and researched forks, and learned everything I could about forks, different kinds of forks, how the forks looked back in the 15th century, what made them evolve into their modern day shape and size, and, you know, everything else in between. And so then when I sat down at supper the next day, I was like, y'all know something interesting about the fork? So, like, the fork, and then everyone was like, oh my God, do you have to do this about everything? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm freaking mentally different, y'all. Like, I have to do this. And so that's largely how I learn about everything, is that I just, like, I look at things, I'm like, that's interesting, and let me learn more about it. Like, I could tell you a little bit probably about everything. Maybe topical knowledge on most things, but really deep knowledge on others, like styrofoam and how styrofoam, you know, like, stuff like that. But still, I hope that kind of does address that fairly well about how I learned a good bit. It was just reading a lot. Also, make sure to read things that are real. Like, that's like the biggest recommendation I can give is read real things, not fake things. Like if you ever read anything that's about the shadow something, discredit that immediately. It's fake. If you ever read anything about esoteric knowledge or like lizard people or aliens or anything like that, just throw that out the window because it usually is just the first sip of the fountain of stupidity, really, from what I found. And like those people live in like a completely alternate world to the one we live in, you know, like in terms of what they think and how they process reality. Because, you know, for me, when I see things in the government, I'm like, you have one interest group here, you have another one here, they're conflicting, or maybe that one interest group has a large stake in both sides, so they're working together, or, you know, and I look at it more in a pragmatic, realistic way. And then you have people who are like, oh, the damn Illuminati, they run the world. And it's like, how in the world does that make sense? Like, it doesn't, because, like, if you just break that down, it makes no sense. You know, and I'm like, I don't know why people, and then they sit there and go, oh, I read all about it in this book that was titled Lizard People and Sex Bugs or something like that. And I'm like, okay, so a titled book like that's clearly not going to be giving you any kind of reasonable knowledge. This was written by a schizophrenic. So, you know, throw that out. Go read something real, you know, like that's what I generally take it as. So you'll never hear me say anything goofy like the American dollar is going to collapse. This was a take I heard a while ago, and it really baffled me. Someone said, oh, the American dollar and the economy is going to collapse because Saudi Arabia pulled out of the petrodollar, and the petrodollar upholds the entire economy. And it's been like months now since that happened, and the US dollar has not changed in value hardly at all. And it's like, okay, bud, it's like, sure. It's like, I guess that was the magic sauce to the dollar, right? Like, it wasn't a faith-based currency or anything realistic. It was a petrodollar, sure. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next one here, we have a support from Rubberman 2036, and thank you very much, Mr. Rubberman, for that support. And yes, you did support us twice. I saw that come in twice. I was thinking, I think he actually pressed it twice. But thank you very much for the $20 support. And he said, why doesn't mainstream news report on significant events in Ukraine often and in real time?
Well, it's not really bringing in the ratings for them. They've got a specific audience that they've curated over the decades through their gradual shift from real news reporting to really being political pundits. So if they move on to real news, they lose their political fanatics that watch their shows. And for that reason, most of the mainstream news sticks to the tried and true political formula instead of actually trying to report real news that people would actually logical-minded people would actually care about. So that's kind of why on the mainstream news, you don't really hear much about it, unless if it's trying to further some sort of a political objective, and then maybe you'll hear about it a little bit. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to Peter Lewis, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Peter, as well for that support. He said, have a good holiday, and have a pint or an ice cream on me.
And I thank you so much for the support, Peter Lewis, and we will have a great holiday. That's a better word than vacation. We went over that, and then I said vacation tonight when I was talking about it. I was like, dang, I didn't even remember. It's a holiday. But still, we will have a great holiday, and we will make sure to have a pint or an ice cream on you. A pint of root beer, though, because we don't drink. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Blue Flame 777 LSA, who puts in a $10 donation. And huge shout out to Blue Flame as well for their support. They said, get yourself some rest, mates. Love you both. And thank you, Blue Flame. He said, what do you call them?
Whoa, Jack, whoa!
I see, oh my God, whoa! What's that, Forster? What say you?
But that punchline, though, man. Look at that punchline.
Hey,
man,
I like that.
Yeah, you know someone like that, don't you? Well, we both know someone like that.
I don't know nobody like that.
Well, no one like that, but you know someone with that name, though.
I know somebody with that name, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that stands true. You never know. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, Blue Flame 777. I just realized, man, that the first way I said that to you probably came off really bad. Like, it's like, you know, someone like
really
that.
Bad.
Shit. It's like, no, I
don't know nothing about that.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that at all. But still, thank you so much for giving the support, Blue Flame 777. And we will make sure to get a question for the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this question is going to go to, let's see, it's going to go to Michael McMahon, who says, do you think that this war will remain with only 2 belligerents?
Most likely so, in my opinion, at least for a very long time. And so with that, thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Neil Vizinot, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you, Neil, as well. He said, I'm still alive, and I did the math one time. I could be wrong, but historically, the average war lasts about 3 to 5 years.
And I thank you so much for the support. And you are still alive, Neil. I was actually reading the super chat you just threw in the chat right there while Matthew was reading it. I was like, that's not lining up. But still, I would say it's probably going to be maybe a lengthy war. Modern wars, though, tend to be outliers because they usually last incredibly long amounts of time compared to historical averages for wars. So this may be a lot longer than the norm, but, you know, usually they do end in 3 to 5 years. Wars just can't last long, usually, especially in a natural environment. But we're kind of working in artificial environments these days with larger countries trying to prop up or support both sides. These wars can end up dragging out for quite some time. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Neil Vizinot once again. He puts in another 10 and says, in 7th grade, I had a teacher who told my parents I was disturbed when I wrote a report on the Spartans. They did some messed up stuff, but just because I write about it doesn't mean I agree with it. Neil, I'll tell you what, I hadn't written nothing about the Spartans, I will say that, but I had that issue in college, actually. I would write papers in my political science courses, and the professor would be of a different mindset when it comes to certain beliefs, and they would mark points off my paper significantly because I didn't agree with what they were saying in class with their, like, opinions. It wasn't facts, it was opinions, and it happened all the time, and it was crazy because I would contest it every single time, and everybody would be like, it's okay, it's up to their discretion whether or not they take off points. I'd be like, what, are you joking? They just take off points because they don't like it? So apparently you know the same thing. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And Neil, I almost had something like that happen to me because when I was in art class, you know, they were like, you know, you can do really whatever you want. So I ended up drawing like tanks and stuff because, you know, I thought it was cool. I was like, hey, that's pretty neat. I was like, I can draw a tank. So I ended up drawing like Challenger 2s, infantry, stuff like that because I thought it was neat. And so then the art teacher eventually asked me, are you okay? What kind of mental headspace are you in to draw this kind of stuff? I was like, I don't know, a patriotic headspace. What do you think? I was like, what the hell? What kind of headspace do you think I'm in? So apparently, drawing that kind of stuff and really just like admiring the armed forces. Apparently, that at least in the mindset of that art teacher, that started to put me in a criteria of a high risk student. I was like, I don't know how in the world that works, but okay, you do you because. You know, like, I acted then like I do now. I was incredibly friendly to folks, really chatty, always like to talk to folks, you know, try and make friends with people. But apparently drawing a tank, wow, you know, like, apparently it's about to be, it's about to be another incident, you know, that happens at schools in America quite frequently, according to that art teacher. I was like, wow, what a way to really make someone feel really weird for just drawing a tank. It's like, I don't know, I feel like dudes at my age in high school, you know, they're like 15 and 16, usually are pretty big into like, you know, soldiers and army guys and stuff like that. It's like, so apparently now that's really questionable. I was like, all right, that's kind of weird, but whatever. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support, Neil, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Lazarus7049, who puts in a 10 and says, power plant. Russia has a limited quantity of anti-air missiles. Using them up on drones means later the skies will be less defended.
And that is an interesting point, Lazarus7049. Kind of the same idea that the Iranian proxies are using against Israel. And so I would say, very interesting point, Lazarus, and that may actually be the case, although they would have to back this up with continuous attacks to wear them down over a couple of days and then launch their major attack at the end of that. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the super chat goes to Khan, who puts in a 10 and says, according to the web, explosions and fires have been reported at the power plants in both Kashira and Konakovo in Russia. And I know about the Konakovo one. I don't know about the Kashira one, though. I think that might be true. But have you guys received any footage of the Kashira power plant getting hit yet?
Not yet. We've only gotten news of the Konakovo power plant getting hit. We have not, well, the Konakovo power plant getting hit. We haven't seen Kashira yet, but we probably will see that by tomorrow midday. And if we do, we might put out a video on it. I think Matthew will be the one putting out the video on it. No. I think I will be the one putting out the video on it. Right, Matthew?
It'll be you.
Yeah, it will be me. So if it does happen, we'll probably put out a video on that tomorrow. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Con. I hope that does address that as best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
See how this keeps going? It keeps going where it ends up your day. The news comes out, and my day, there's absolutely nothing that happens. I can't even make a video. I don't know why. I haven't made a video in like 12 days or something, so I'm going on a streak. But anyways, going on this one right here, we have a $5 super chat from CK Bold, the longtime channel legend, and thank you very much. He said, take a live chat question, and we shall. And in honor of CK Bold, the live chat question goes to... let's see here. It's going to go to John B. Rempel. He said, what is the latest on the F-16? And keep up the good work, gentlemen.
And thank you so much for the support, CK Bold. And the latest news on the F-16, we haven't heard a lot about them in operation. We heard that they were apparently involved in shooting down some drones. And then we got news that 1 out of the 6 operational ended up crashing on Monday this week. So that's about all the news we have at the moment. And I thank you once again, CK Bold, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Professor Thursday, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Professor, for that support. They said, update, building on fire in Moscow. Woo, woo. 20 Berezovskaya embankment via Newsweek in the admin building.
And I thank you so much for sharing that, Professor Thursday. We actually covered that a little bit earlier, but thank you for giving us an exact geolocation. It is somewhere in between the Kievsky railway station, which puts all of their passenger trains under one covering. That's pathetic. Really sad. Don't like it. And also, I thought that said something else there. I was about to be, what? I almost had to do a double take there. I was like, what? But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for geolocating that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 5 from Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in that 5. And thank you very much, Andrew, for that support. They said, in my opinion, the Ukrainians are defending their homeland much the same as the U.S. during the Revolutionary War. No politics, I'm just being objective. And LSA.
And I'd say there's nothing political about that. I'd say that's actually fairly true. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Andrew Honeycutt, and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, because the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to No Same, who puts in a 5 and says, was Belgrade a false flag or not?
We can't really tell. The Russians haven't blamed the Ukrainians for anything yet, so it may have not been a false flag. It may have truly been Russian stupidity at its greatest. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for supporting No Same and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jay Bagwell. Once again, he's coming back in with another super chat, and he puts in a 5 this time. And thank you, Jay, once again for the second support of the night. He said, I'm sorry, I meant to say Jefferson Davis. Besides, Lee didn't have the legs to pull that off. And also, I'm a few minutes behind, so please pardon the delay.
And no worry, Jay Bagwell, delay pardoned, presidential pardon. But so beyond that, it's perfectly fine. I found out I was wrong either way, either on Lee or Davis. I was completely wrong. You actually did better research on that than my history teacher did back in 10th grade that I banked that statement on, because I remember exactly where I got that from, because she was also the one to say that America invented the first steam train, we invented the propeller, and she would always say propeller instead of saying propeller. She would say propeller. I was like, I don't know why. She also said that the entire War of the 1812 happened on the Great Lakes, and then just mentioned the Battle of New Orleans out of the blue, and didn't even say that that was a part of the War of 1812. She also went on to say that that a Sainsbury's ad of the Christmas truce of 1914 showed Americans in the Christmas truce, and Americans were present at the Christmas truce, although America didn't join the war until 1917, and the Christmas truce was in 1914. And what else do you have?
And also, just like the other crazy history teacher, she would also go on screaming, raging, rampage meltdowns as well, pretty much every other week, at least in my class. So that was another crazy one.
Yeah, it was not a great class. And then out of all of that, you know, because I should have sat there and had some logical thinking about that person, that teacher, and I should have been like, you know, they've gotten everything wrong. I'm pretty sure the story about Jefferson Davis wearing a dress trying to escape is probably false as well. But for some reason, that one I ran with, and it was wrong. So I'm wrong, yeah, because I ran with it and I took that as fact. But anyways, I thank you so much for correcting it, J Bagwell, because better to be corrected than wrong. Or just for the rest of my life. And so I can thank you so much once again for support. And also, Lee didn't have the legs to pull it off. I heard that he had corky legs. Very short, could not run that far. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address it incredibly well, J Bagwell. And thank you for being an old guard and a channel legend as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Daniel Moore, who puts in a 2 and says Putin's head is spinning.
And Putin's head is spinning. You spin me right round, baby, right round. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to a new viewer here, Holden McGroin, who puts in a $2 donation. And I said it anyway. Thank you very much for that support. They said, first time super chat, long live the LSA.
And long live the LSA. And I like your name, Holden McGroin, because a lot of people do be holding McGroins. but no one be holding the hot dog, man. It's very sad, very sad. Many such cases. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Severus Kloss, who puts in a $1 donation, and thank you very much for supporting the channel. And we also have, finally, 2 last super chats here from Robert. He says, talk about the railroads in Taiwan, and also show the Chessie system locomotive, the Big Cat.
Hey, and the Chessie system, that's a cool one. I actually like their liveries, but Taipei, let's go to Taipei here at the Taipei main station. Not Union Station, main station. They don't have a Union Station. They have a main station. Pretty clean, actually. Pretty clean. Oh, dude. I don't like the modern architecture, though. Me, personally, not a big fan. I like our classic American train stations a little bit better. But let's see if we can actually get a picture of the trains, because it seems like everyone's really scared of taking pictures of the trains. Can we get a picture of these trains? Are they like Long Island Railroad, like M7s? Can't tell. Where in the world is a... Oh, hello. I don't know what kind of train that is. It almost looks like a Shinkansen from the sidecars and how the windows are set up. But I can't tell for certain because I'm not a big fan or really like a big researcher of like Asian rail systems. Like, I know a lot of people are going to be shocked by that. They're like, what? You don't care about Japan's? Like, yeah, it runs on time, but I just don't really like the look of their trains, really. Like, except for the Shinkansen. Shinkansen's goated, but every other one is kind of like, it's like, I don't know. I can't find a picture of the trains, though, and I'm not sure if they have an actual rail network. It might just be Metro in the Taipei area, and then that's it, because I don't remember seeing any rail yards down here at their docks. And do they have any? They don't. So I guess it's like a railless system out here, except for the Metro. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'm wrong, though. But let me go get the Chessie system. The Chessie system. These were really cool. It was a company that operated, well, it was kind of like the successor of the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway. But their liveries on their locomotives were really cool and really bright. I liked them, me personally.
Yeah, I like it too. It's pretty cool.
Man, it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, in our next one here, we actually have 2 more super chats that just came in. And this one goes to Rob Keith, who puts in his first ever super chat on a live stream. And thank you very much, Rob, for that support. And we appreciate that very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you for the support, Rob Keith. Rob Keith. I turned into Mike Tyson there. I said, thank you so much for the support, Rob Keith. But still, thank you so much for the support. While it's your first super chat, I'm not really sure if YouTube's telling the truth on that one. I think they're capping. But beyond that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And so thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the last super chat before we get on into the live chats. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and this one goes to No Same, once again, who puts in another support, a $5 donation. Thank you very much for that support as well. They said, Russians have blamed Ukraine hit on Ukraine. And does this not indicate further incursion by Ukraine rather than a false flag?
Matthew, do you understand the question?
Let's see. Russians have blamed Ukraine on hit on Ukraine. Let's see. I'm trying to figure it out real quick. Hold on just a second. Let's see here. I'm not understanding the first part, if I'm being honest.
I would say, if I'm understanding that correctly, and hopefully I am, if as far as blaming the attack on Belgrade on Ukraine, it wouldn't really signify a further incursion. That would be an attack on civilians, and for that reason, that would probably promote a higher escalation of the war if they tried to paint it as a false flag. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who helped make this thing possible. And with that, we are now moving on into our live chat segment.
There's no same said hit on Belgrade. The correction right there.
Okay, so I did answer that correctly. Good. Good. But still, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the live chat segment. Due to time constraints, we're going to only be able to answer the Morse code decoders and 3 live chat questions. So take it away, Matthew.
All right, so the Morse code decoders tonight were Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, David Millsaps, and her royal fluffiness. They said that the Morse code decipher says the sky is turning black with Ukrainian drones, and let's hot the Kremlin gets it, and LLT, LSA, and keep up the great work, guys.
And that is the sound of money, because y'all got that dead on the nail. It was hope. It was not hot. It was hope. But beyond that, y'all, we got it right. Hey! And I got to congratulate y'all for getting it correct on the 920th day of the war. We were only 80 days away from the 1000th day of war, and yet y'all are still getting this dead on the nail. I got to congratulate y'all for that and give y'all a big shout out. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this one's going to go to, let's see here. This one's going to go to Anani Mouse, who says, could the goal of the troop buildup in Belarus be to hamper Ukraine from committing more troops to the Russian front?
It could be. It could be so. Yes, I would say so. It probably is. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. I don't know why sometimes I lose my English abilities. Right there was one of them. I'm very sorry, but I hope I did answer that well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Music Angel, who says, in y'all's opinion, how far can Ukraine get into Russia before Putin panics and presses the nuke button?
If they made it all the way up to Oriel, or onto the border of the Tula Oblast, that's probably when they'd start nuking them, because then it would be so bad there's really no way to recover from that. So that would be my answer, somewhere in between Oriel and Tula. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the final question of the night. And so, who was lucky last person to run the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is The Observer. And the Observer says, do you think that Putin will be taking the Bullet Express out of Russia at the end of the war? Or will he be jailed for life? Or will he receive slapping on the wrist?
I would say he's probably going to just escape Russia and probably live in exile somewhere like China or maybe even North Korea. I don't think he's ever going to get killed. I don't even think he's going to even be held accountable for what he's done, because he probably has enough goons in his inner circle that they would be able to ensure that he made it out of the country safely and into exile somewhere without getting killed, and probably without getting killed in some foreign country either, even living in exile. I hate to say that. It's an unfortunate reality that I believe is one that people have to be ready for, is that Putin may never face justice for the crimes that he's committed either against the Russian people or against Ukraine during this war. Usually folks like him try and get away. Some of them fail. Some of them end up taking themselves out. But I feel like he's going to be one of the kind of people to escape and possibly get away with it too. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all. Oh, bless you. Goodness. Oh, my.
Excuse me.
Oh, goodness. Bless you. My Lord. But with that, it is time for us to end. I got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. Tonight, we had a peak of 13.6 thousand people here. Absolutely incredible. And about 108,000 people have watched this stream since it started. We are entirely thankful and appreciative that each and every one of y'all come here to watch this channel and get the news from this channel. There are many channels that y'all could go to watch, but nevertheless, y'all all come here, and we're incredibly grateful and very appreciative that y'all continue to watch this channel for y'all's primary source of news. And of course, we will see y'all tomorrow for the Sunday night fundraiser at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. Put an LSA in the chat, and good night.
And with that, good night, folks, and thank you all for another fantastic stream tonight. It was another good one on this day of the War News stream. And of course, be sure to join us tomorrow for the fundraiser night, which is of course a legendary night on Sunday, where we raise more money to help those in Ukraine, which is something we've been doing for the entire time the channel's been running, and we're very proud of that. Over 1.4 million raised for the Ukrainian charities. So with that, we'll see you all tomorrow, and be sure to get some rest, and Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.